Testing 1, 2, 3. 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 English channel. Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3.
Yes, sensing pure. I can share you. Very nice. On YouTube.
Oh, on YouTube, okay. All right, great.
Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing.
Again,
Так, у нас остается пара минут до начала учений. Я еще раз повторю, что рад приветствовать всех на втором дне учений достаточного Jhado Rinpoche. Если вам необходим русский перевод, то, пожалуйста, оставайтесь в главном канале. Если же вам необходим какой-либо другой язык, то вы можете выбрать его, нажав «Перевод». Занятие лекции начнется буквально через несколько минут уже, когда подключится Jhado Rinpoche. И я напомню, что у нас будет вестись прямая трансляция на YouTube с русским переводом и с английским переводом. Поэтому, если кому-либо так будет удобнее, то, пожалуйста, можно смотреть на YouTube без каких-либо проблем. И лекции мы планируем оставить также потом на YouTube. Либо мы их переработаем и выложим по новой, либо оставим эти же. In case, good morning everyone. We are welcome to see you at the second day of teachings of Venerable Jhado Rinpoche. We are glad to see you here. Our teachings will start in a few moments, maybe in 1 or 2 minutes. If you need not Russian language, for example, English, German or Chinese, you should press interpretation button as you see on the screen now and choose language which you need, which you prefer. Also, we have a broadcast on the YouTube channel. English assistant may have already published the link for English translation into the chat. If you prefer YouTube, you can watch it on YouTube. We have planned to make broadcasts all the day. Also, Sometimes you can meet technical issues. For example, if you hear original sounds of Russian translators too loud, in this case you can use mute original audio option. Yes. Good morning, Jhado Rinpoche. I finished.
Oh, thank you. Oh, many tashi delay. Tamal tashi delay shurona.
Wishing everybody a Tashi Dele.
Tashi delay.
Tashi Dele.
Oh. Dan den shan digi ba.
Los.
Oh. Sanje Jhado Zoje Dani Gyaltsen Che Dagi Jenso Sanje Jhado Zoje Dani Gyaltsen Che Dagi Sanje Robar Sanje Jhado Dani Gyaltsen Che Dagi Sanje Robar Oh yeah. Tani mani lodi in da share go to je. Oh. Da kazan yugu juat dang geja tushan ndigi usare samsar do. Kaja munzi share da sne. Chi share do kazan. O dinne ga chimbuji re do. O tanda di ene dewa gombara se ala. Chue nam tobe wangi joksu share na. Tele le di do share US. Tindrik tsiki yungdwa. Di ngaran rojilina ni di kechimbuji tsiki di nuwa chimbuji tsiki ye. Da karirasana. Chue tamje mingi tanya ye wangi shabe shalu di yawo ji pa ene ngebe ina. Ana mingi tanya ye wangi shabe za mahimba yurang duluju mwene truba di ene gaja dindu sayati imbare. Tatatu truba zimba di ene dinzi imbare. O ene gaja dinzu di yabuchi matu res. Chue tamje mingi tanya ye wangi shazu di ene 다 컨디스 체제 에너지 버체레스 체비나 다 코드야 지라 에네 좀 여이신도 빼지 샤는 동안 배는 알아서 우춘중 다 론이바수바 아니 시벨로들이야 통화 레벨이야 아니 지금 배가 주시다고 쇼울레벨도 tunde 가면야 다 바바르지나 가스네 쇼르지 가야 이게 밀라 티제 어디 가르다 스제 어도스네 파텐데지 다 지게 노초르지나 아바 베사로 ABC 사로 어도스네 텐데 보고 디기 당고 가 속다 이나레 에 속다 이나레 아 속다 이나레 다 가리네 카케 싱메 붙이라 될 타녀데 파타네 니카르다스 아니 타니요 파 속다디 입틀이야 아니 딘데 타니도 파따 아까도 검제 니만 찍찍고 깨져 말해 니만 먹는 봐도 검제 다 단단 안 안서 진짜 중이다 지 럽다 텐 잡았지 이기도 마치 로유가 갑라 이거 코로나네 수 유기 누르기 뭐네 지 직tin지 야수 샤링 뭐가 나시지 등안 sol라 지 뇽에 터네 지 셰트야 뇽에 카타기 없지 거기 균전시야가 떼먹어 맨날 투지체스니 이기지 되네 다가라는 투지체스기 주 샤이므로 탱기 요승이지나 탱기 요승이 주 샤이므로 이거 코랑이 유기 누르네 수 샤기 여버지 디 당고 코라네 유기 누르면은 샤기메가 타니 온게 화 샤기 여버데 우춘중 감에 들렸지 어디 저한테 민기 타니 온 샤와 마도 유랑 누르 용에네 어떻다도 주요 말해서야지 다 고치도와 다나 양교 배신다 직시나 인지기 안그 두버다 안그 고바티 지 야칼로 지마 고들로 설치지 도와 다 주주를 구르바다 주지다 구지 이나 주주를 구르바 다 주주를 구들 레벨체 도스치 체제 소소 데데 네 로버지 피게잖아 다 주되다 구티 타니 원게 샤니 파나디게 때네 주주를 구래 니네 바때네 주주를 구래 이나야 유코랑 뭐네 아니 주주바지이나 아니 파나디기 니네 바타샤고 고바티 파나디기 주샤 투야 거라 매대지 파나디기 주샤 대야티 쇼데 조만 대대버티기 아니 구샤 투야 매대지 유기만 좀 걸 깬시는 뜨야 매딩이지 기와 매베기 지 힘고야지로 티 마이바 초 예를 때네 주주를 고세야 돼 떠서 던져지기 토하네 구바도 주주를 주바도 구발 두걸 독체 그러되기요지 티 주주를 고티 그런 라바시 순지기 디 레가지야 자와 왜 다니기 남자 차상 제도요지 뭐 또왜 강소 모이기 어떤지 다니기 남자 차상 저도요지 어떤 데를 왔어 나 두쪽이 가르를 쓰나 민기 타니니 왕기 샤기 여바지라 샤점 지임바지라 마란츠 로이므네 도스파 진주데 나베깔이야 민기 타니니 왕기 샤점 마이바 유규므네 둘루규므네 주바다고지 나왔다도 다다르도 시험바데 가장 진수스게 다 가장 문제사 다 된지지 이사래 예전으로지 니티
Yesterday there was a question about identifying the object of negation. Indeed, this is a very important topic, yeah? And there's this discussion of identifying the object of negation in Jhado Rinpoche's illuminating the intent, which I find very useful and important. So basically, Jhado Rinpoche said, if you understand the way in which things exist through being merely imputed by name, merely imputed by thought, then you will come to understand the opposite of it, which is the object of negation. Because the opposite of that which is merely imputed by thought is that which is not merely imputed by thought, that which truly exists, isn't it? So that is the object of negation. Yeah? And to make things easier, His Holiness gave a very good example. So His Holiness said, take for example a child who's maybe 2 or 3 years old. So when he or she is first taught the alphabet, be it the Tibetan alphabet or the English alphabet, let's say if it is A, B, and C, isn't it? So when the child is first introduced to the letter A, what the child sees is just these 3 lines, drawn in this particular configuration on a piece of paper, isn't it? And then the teacher tells the child, okay, this is A. So from this example, you can see A is nothing more than that which is merely imputed by thought, isn't it? A exists as something merely imputed by thought. It exists as a mere name, isn't it? But then over time, then as the child gets accustomed to it without thinking, so whenever he or she looks at the letter A, he or she sees a letter A existing right there from its own side, isn't it? It doesn't appear back to the mind as something merely imputed by thought, isn't it? Likewise, if we see the word "thank you" written on a piece of paper, it doesn't appear to us as something that is merely imputed by thought. There is appearance of a real thank you right there from its own side. We assent to that appearance, isn't it? Right? But we should remember, going back to our childhood, remember the time when we were taught the alphabet. We can tell, isn't it, from our experience that the letter A is not something that exists from its own side. It is something that is merely imputed by thought. It exists in mere name, isn't it? But however, now, whatever that appears to us, it appears to exist from its own side, isn't it? It doesn't appear as something that doesn't appear. It doesn't appear as something that is merely imputed by thought, isn't it? It appears as if it has its own substantial reality. It has its own particular mode of subsistence existing right there from its own side. So let me give you an example. So somebody writes let's say if you write the number 69 on a piece of paper, isn't it? So depending on where you're sitting, isn't it? So let's say you've written 69 on a piece of paper, and then now imagine there's another person sitting in front of you. When that person looks at the piece of paper that you have put in front of you, that person sees 96. You see 69. He or she sees 96, isn't it? Right? We see a 69 from his own side. The person sitting opposite to you sees a 96 existing from his own side. But however, if 69 exists from his own side, then there is no way that the person sitting opposite you can see 96, and vice versa, isn't it? If 69 existed from his own side, then no matter how you look at the piece of paper, regardless of where you're sitting, everybody should see 69, but that is not the case, isn't it? So, but yet 69 and 96 exist, isn't it? Although they both exist in mere name and it exists relative to one another, but nevertheless, although they exist in mere name, they function. Both function, isn't it? From our perspective, 69 exists. From the other person's perspective, 96 exists, isn't it? Although both 96 and 69 are similar in that they do not exist from their own side as being 96 or 69, isn't it? So the point is that although in reality things exist as something that is merely imputed by thought, posited by in name, isn't it? But yet, when phenomena present themselves to us, they appear to us as something truly existent, existing right there from his own side. And on top of that, we assent to their appearance. We believe that things exist in the way they appear. Okay, so this is the way to go about recognizing the object of negation.
Lost Rinpoche.
Oh, 강사가 다음에 취기 다음에 봤습니다. 동시 최전 강사가 띵도 애는 섬당인도 라시메가 땡 배인도 강사가 다음에 and Pungso Tindu, Zorsumbe, and Tindeci, the Chug Tindu, then Dame, 10 bend, Chugi Dameson, or the Dongshi Nel, or those Cheche, the Kaparchik Jan, Kasar Dame, Chugi Dame, that Tanyu Tinde Sunguyore. Tindeci Hindu, that Tandandi, nothing in the Gavena. Chitariki, Dag Dushiki, Sheva Tishin Kuna, Leger Chasne, Tambo Kansak Dame, and G. Tole, like Rimbe want to check, Tambo Kansak Dindu, and Rashimeva Terbe, or Tene Shabamato, Raman Meva, or Tia Bochigi, Kohacha, Tus Cheje, Tidne, Nyabaching Hindu, and Dashi Pungsolo Sobe, or Tidetindu, Jarje, or Tinchagures, Sungudwa. When Shenda Pashani, Luduki, Umar Jetanala, Kibu Sami, Chumi, Memi, Lumi, Namkami, Namshimai, Sije, that Kibuti, Kibusna, that Kansati, that's also in a red Masati. And Sa, Chu, Me, Lum, Naganamshi, come to Dengi Kibuchi, come to them, I Kibuchi Yamara, or come to Dengi Kibuti. Or come really do Chetsevina, Tanyam, Tautan Dirison, Zutu Magic, near Medachi. Or Kibu come to Divici, Yanda Mais, that down Kibu Meverisna, Mares, Kibuti, that Mingi Tanya Wonk, and Shazamshi, then Shazamshi. And Chitawas, the she come Rerea, Dujianda need message, Tishu Chigitame Sudo, Taganashi, come reading the Dr. Zen, Yamares, or the Chigitame, Tambo Kansak Dame soon, and the Tijesu, Chitawa, the she come Rerea, Dujianda need message, Chigitame, Namshati, or Dusche, Sumi Yobache, Tinde Yimbare. That call Pejanal Yabati, Susu Yamol, Jarje, Kodeo on the Chimney. Neji Shivina, and a mass at me. Kansa Kandakaina, mass and Zuchi Zuniati. Luge, Semre, Chaware. Jidan lose sem Chawasubuti, Bet Kagare, lose sem Mare, sem Lumare, Chawar Lusum Nigamare, lose at Sukere, sem set in Chevre, Chawar set in Damendujere. Sushen Damendujus and Gavare. Ota tus cheje, Rodan tus cheni, Yedavachilla, Ma poi, Ma moi, not Papai, not Yagai Sano, Ota tus cheje, get a shade in send it in the catch a shares came mapchire, Taco Lugitine, shame we are, Oti, Sheva Shishi, Parang Tanya Namshakanga, Jotu Yachire, Digi Chawachi Chigore, Titrasi. Kasore, Nuba Mavia, Reamare, Tia, Gazeti, Zuniamare, or Gazeti, Chavachetu Yorela, the Damayare, or Pore Morris at the Tatare. That in the Lobjong Gazeton shade, not in the Tamboi, not in the Nibai, not the shades, or the shade, Lubuk in the Tambo said Yomare. Lubuk the Naniva set Yomare, Lubuki Gishetan set Yomare. That Sembi, Sheje and Deji, Sheve, Rebel to Chene, and a Shegore. To do nothing, coming to Yobatavich, Jan Shigi Yorson, not sending Jagi Yobatavich Yore. Oh, that cover Lugiting the Jagi Yobatov, cover sending Shagi Yobatavo. That in the Gene, not Dobsoy, not Shingsois, or not Remois in the Chawachil ten the Jagior, Dobso Shingso Singing, Chaware, Luke Kajay Mare, Send Kajay Mare, Chawachil Jan Shever, or cover Chaveting Shagi Yobatov. That there's a chiller tene, Chawakanda Kangitolia, there's a chill tene, Dobso much, Dobso, Shingso is and Shane, Tatan Rio. Ya, Luke Nezuchita, Mirig Nezuchitone, Shane, Mapoin, Moin, Papai, Yagais, or Tustin, Tata Tian, Titon, Chawachinis, Yodachi. That's Sandy, Jinam Sharaton, Shane, Jiton, Shade, or Tustin, and then the Tawin Yishis, or Tustin, Doctoris, or Tustin, Shadi, or Tersa Chile, and take up the Titin, and Tustin, shagi yobachi. That shadayati, you korang when dulu when luiti tindu true meba, simki tingne true meba, and then you korang dulu chaveting ne true meba. True manaya, tanya giwangi, shatuya, yonsu soba yodayachi. Or those chavina, ganga demonchini jatuyachi. Kate tedar meba cheni, you tagden zene, nyebe looks cheni, you think ne yobachi, nye gogo yobaina, and then Lugiting the Kansate, Tanyeti, Jatuya Mevchi, Chavetin, Tanyeti, Jatuya Mevchi, Comadeji, young to it, Shadow Medachi, what in this doa, what in the Indu, and Churtamje, Dune Shazami, Dashi Consulting Kaza, or that Dachi Consulting, and Dembe chained, what in the next sometime, G, call some quiet about G. I think Dembe Chachi do somebody. But today, metal somebody to do, Chitan Chabaranga to Javina, than they come to Shumatawa, come to Jan Shen, share on that's on the Masebe, Gochizune, Gandhi Patu, and Lubokanezevina. You marriage Sumbare. In the Lanjuba Menje Tabuchi, and covered that. Doctors and never looks Chen, she Ramuba Menje, from that summer, doctors and never looks Chen, she gave a Yinza, and the cover that doctors said then, that's Zuchu was a tingy, Shabudu, Zudi, and Tishi Ginamshel Zuzu Batavo. And Kushinamshel, some of the way, no Kushinamshel, Zuzu Batavo. Or that name, G. Dodeva Menjeda, G. Tuju, and Pungongagata, and G. Punguti in Zuzu, but in the Yungudua. That time you were the Chashan, tendency 1000 never look so never chen. 1000 near never in a till tiny one zangi and the Chajatamje, Jotu Re soon happy, and Nubachi which Jigadua. Linda, Cherno, overwhelmed. Yosu Shena, tell a daughter in the things they have to share with you. And this is sometimes matter somebody to do.
So in short, we say that phenomena, all that exists in mere name, and all of it are posited, or phenomena are posited or dependently designated. Nothing exists from its own side, isn't it? So if we look at this from the consequence and middle way school's point of view, if we settle the view of emptiness in relation to the person as the basis, then one would arrive at the view of the selflessness of persons. If one is settling the view of emptiness on the basis of phenomena, that means things that are other than the person, then we will arrive at the view of the selflessness of phenomena. So according to the middle way consequence school, the difference between the selflessness of persons and the selflessness of phenomena is made on the basis of emptiness and not by the object of negation. Yeah? So, and with regards to these two selflessnesses, it is mentioned in the King of the Concentrations Sutra that the selflessness of persons is easier to realize than the selflessness of phenomena. As such, one should understand, try to understand, to realize the selflessness of persons first, by seeing how the person is nothing other than that which is dependently designated, existing in mere name. Once you have an understanding of that, then you apply that understanding to other phenomena. Yeah. So likewise, Nagarjuna in his precious garden, he said, being a person is not earth, not water, not fire, not wind, not space, isn't it? So if we look for, because a person, we say is dependently designated on the aggregates, and the human aggregates, for example, are made up of these different elements: earth, water, fire, wind, and then you have the space element, isn't it? If you search for the person amongst the elements, you will not be able to point to any of the elements as the person itself, isn't it? So then Nagarjuna goes on to say that the person is not the consciousness as well, and the person is not all of them. Then what person is there other than these, isn't it? Right? So Nagarjuna is not saying that the person is non-existent. It is just saying that the person does not exist from his own side. The person exists as something that is dependently vaccinated, right, on the aggregates, which are the basis of vaccination. Yeah? Then Nagarjuna continues by saying, just as because of being only imputed independence upon an aggregation of the 6 constituents or the elements, a person is not established as his or her own reality. So because of being imputed independence upon an aggregation, each of those elements also is not established as its own reality. So basically, Nagarjuna is saying, once you have the understanding of the selflessness of person, then you apply your understanding of emptiness to the phenomena as well. And in this case, he's talking about the aggregates, isn't it? Which is made up of the elements. Yeah. So point here basically is it's easier to realize the selflessness of persons first, isn't it? Okay, maybe let me just share with you some tips on how we can apply these teachings in our own experience, isn't it? Right. So we are supposed to look for the I. When we have this sense of a real I, a very concrete sense of an I, isn't it? Right. And if you were to look for the I, basically, I mean, you have to look for the I in within the body, the mind, or the action or the activities that are performed by this person, isn't it? Right. So in general, the body is matter. Consciousness is body is matter, is form. Consciousness is consciousness, and activity is performed by the I. Is an impermanent phenomenon, and within that, it is a non-associated compositional factor. So, as such, the body, the mind, and the actions performed by the I are mutually exclusive, isn't it? Right? But but many a times, there are occasions, in which we feel that the I is the body, isn't it? Isn't it? Because we feel that we associate ourselves with a particular race, isn't it? Right? Well, we say that I'm a Tibetan, I'm Indian, or I'm male, I'm female, isn't it? That's how we communicate. That's what we believe, and we say things like that. But in reality, these are not false statements. They're true, isn't it? It's not a lie when we say I'm a Tibetan or I'm a male, I'm a female. We're not telling a lie. We're not saying something that is untrue, isn't it? Right? So in this case, in such a case, where we say that I'm a Tibetan or I'm a Chinese or and so forth, obviously we're not talking about the I in relation to the mind, isn't it? It is very much a physical thing, isn't it? Right. Then there are times where we identify ourselves as being a geshe, or a student in high school, or I'm a university graduate, and so forth, isn't it? So whenever we identify ourselves as such, obviously we're not talking about a physical quality. We are talking about a quality of the mind, in this case, and our educational qualifications, isn't it? Which is the quality of the mind. It's nothing to do with the body, isn't it? So there are times, it looks like as if the I was the mind, isn't it? Then there are other times where we say that, oh, I'm a carpenter, I am such and such. I don't know. I can't remember what examples we gave, but basically you can say whatever you like. I'm a monk, I'm a carpenter, and these are statements that are not false, isn't it? And in such occasions where we identify ourselves as doing a particular occupation, obviously we are not. The sense of an I is not uh, based on the body nor mind, but rather is based on a particular action or activity that we might be undertaking, isn't it? So, depending on which perspective we take, right? So, we say that I'm male, I'm female, I'm a carpenter, or I'm a geisha, or I'm a high school student, and so forth, isn't it? Right. So this and these statements are all true, isn't it? Depending on the context, it's true, isn't it? So this shows that the I is not the body, the I is not the mind, and the I is not the actions or the activity performed by the I, isn't it? Because if the I was the body, then there's no way then you can say that I'm a graduate, or there's no way you can say that I'm a carpenter, right? Because those actions, like saying that I'm a carpenter, has nothing at all to do with the body, isn't it? Saying that I'm a graduate has nothing at all to do with the body as well, isn't it? So, yet Yet, although the I is not the body, not the mind, not the activity performed by the I, but yet, when we say that I'm male, I'm female, I'm a graduate, I'm a carpenter, these are not false statements. They are true, isn't it? They're true, conventionally speaking, isn't it? But yet, from this example, we can see very clearly that I does not exist from its own side. It's not the body, not the mind, not the activity, but it is something that is just merely vaccinated, depending on the context, isn't it? Isn't it? So the I exists as something that is merely imputed by thought. It exists conventionally. It does not exist from its own side. So so if the I exists in the way it appears, that is, if it exists truly from its own side, if you look for it, then you should be able to point to something that is the I. And of course, all the Buddhist tenets, with the exception of the middle way consequence school, assert that everything that exists from their own side. They exist inherently, and therefore you can point to something that is the object. The object in question is findable. This is the position of the all the Buddhist tenets, with the exception of the middle way consequence school, isn't it? But of course, uh, from the example that I've given earlier, it is clear that there's no way we can say that the I is the body, neither is the I the mind, and neither the I is the I the action, isn't it? Is very clear, isn't it? Or if you try looking for the I in the body, so you will search for the I from the crown of your head down to the soles of your feet, you'll not be able to point to anything that is the I, isn't it? Right. But of course, the all the other Buddhist tenets, with the exception of the middle way consequence school, say that such an I can be found, is pointable, isn't it? So therefore, as such, according to the Great Exposition school, for example, some of them posit the I to be the five aggregates. Then when you come to the mind only school, those who assert what we call mind basis of all, they assert that the I is the mind basis of all. And whereas in the other tenets, such as the middle way autonomy school, then they posit the mental consciousness as an illustration of the I. Basically, according to these lower tenets, they basically assert that the I, the imputed object, the I, the person, can be found. It's findable under analysis, isn't it? Of course, this is not accepted by the middle way consequence school, and I've given you an example earlier on to show why the I is why the I does not exist from its own side. But although things do not exist from the own side, nevertheless they do function. They exist conventionally, and yet they do function. They can function, isn't it?
Lost Michelle.
Also.
好， 다 수쟁이 처 많이 믿으지 처 직시 차샤바이나 고 초대 요말 두제세 요말 고 두응아질 잔에 엔자바체 두응아질 잔에 잡아체인데 배나 샤바타부들 차샤나 아니 샤바 기징마만 가사르스 단다 요말스 기지 치마데 중규레스 다 예바데 다다와레스 다 네셈 세지 다다 마란솔이야 마다 마제변하네 네셈 생이지 예버래 민기 타니에 원기 조투거래 네셈 기부여 네셈 기부매 드링아셈 기부도 기부면도 사지 어떤지 타니지 연구여 된다베기 셈디 다 기징맘에 차든 가사와 매버지 기지 침에 차디 중두리 임바체 다코 추주다 까르마다 까르차다 까르체 양자다 도스는 파세베이나 다다와디 다셈 다다와지 디르스는 조조야지 냐데야 메더버디 등상마라주 록둘기 다 디지털 시도 디지털기 추주기 까르체 양자 도줄 때베이나 타마타마 안기 제베설지 마토 당보다 니바다 좀 메스도 메버지 연구도와 딘데르 도스 섬다나 다다베셈 싱이디 무슨 조조네 지 따더자네 디레스네 냐지 메더지 가데 다다와디 되는 무슨 전 얘기면 내바다 마음바니 다다월 때는 시작이에요. 근데 인도 다 다다웨선사 대양 지 탄얘기 왕기 뜻사질 때는 아니 시작이에요. 다 뜻사질 때 세비 다다웨 들어 다대로 다대 나와 드링기니마 다대 추제 스케자시아스나 다대 들었으나 다다와때 로 야자치기 뒤에다가 다대 로세나 샤우스게 두주에다가 다대 나와서나 샤우스주 다대 취재스나 취재 단단히 있어식 다니제 그다 다대 니모스나 취재 있어식 다니제 다대 취재스 다대 취재 디나니 네셈스나 까마 두주 다니 다대 까마서 도스천 다다사 타니디 지르데 töö사 당화 töö사 되기 아니 지 두유린동다 아니 지 도스체네 샤기요 샤바정도 마스비 디타니 디 토네 예럽시에 두거를 누유시에 두거를 강가시에 두거를 두조 창말로 베디 조무도 받지 않는 말에 조루 조단테야 민게 타니게 원게 샤바마도 유랑문에 예수 매더지 유랑문에 주가 나왔다도 신진 좀바디 다 가제 남수 가장 진수 딘데 토리아 딘데기 제바체지 여인바래 딘데 인도 단단히 사와시런 나로 뺑고 바벌로 두기 중매 수다 갈라시 수경모 민zam치 남가에 안에 민zam 대신 민zam 이게메스 중화사 중화추 중화롱 중화매 다 중화남가 근데 지금 중앙아 어떻게 좀시 두테네 아츠웨이나 중앙사스는 디레스는 내손이 규매된 게 페이지는 900모 설치 인데베 설치 다 중앙 차시 찬시 그러나 나라도 통대하게 사트다 나라도 통대하게 매트 계좌 많이 맞죠 좀시 타투기 아니 사추 멜롱스인데 그런 민징 야 예브체가 메이 감기 네바로지 두버체바디 추유감은 네바디 무즘버체바디 사이감은 네베서지 다 딘데 설치 레데도와 그런 지 폐계 영화들 룽그 감들을 신설지 딘데 chen 다 그런 고제베 차디 중원남 계획이 디스르지 레데도와 딘데 지 뜻사지를 때네 샤와마도 지 좀시 아니 중원사주매로 생기 따던자네 예 영화지 민도와 딘데 매바이나 델라 때네 좀 수트데 아니 다들자니 냐바 가와이스 수중모 민zam치스 다 민타니에 온게 샤zam치레도 와스 민zam치스 다 수젠 라바 인 수두스체 다들자니 냐 매베이나스 델레 타웨 지 두마치기 최 남가 사야도데 샤조그 남가 누초그 남가 승gen디 초지를 뜨니 샤고마도 지 그 니샤게 남가를 쓰면 따다즈미에 지 매도데 배드 세고 다는 민가왕기 샤브를 사야데 타마로들 민가왕기 샤점디 다 배지를 따든자니 민가왕기 샤점디다 녀이고 여배서지 등한서 샤도도와 보다 보다 최대한 민가왕기 샤점인다 사야지 민도 봤을 때 도도지 여배서지 나 샤도지 여배가 대지를 민전 얘기야 메스 유르지가 도수여래 대지를 민전 얘기야 니사지 난 유르지가 도수여래 니가 rol이야 데투야지래 대지를 민전 얘기야 니저वे나 민전 대야 아니 다든자니 녀바면 민가왕기 샤점지레스 대지를 민전 얘기야 니스 대지를 민전 얘기야 메스나 민전 대야 다든자니 ramane yugi dulu jungane nyayo maras o da thus cherni duteng ting chog ting o da dugna chi chak ting kanjas chabi na ya ta thanye gewang ge shazam chi ma do yugi mone nyeba yo maras che o sung de de ta da ra thwa yu de so chi o to sim ba da.
So we analyze phenomena. So there are phenomena that are form, isn't it? So when we are talking about form, then if you want to look for the real form, if it exists from its own side, then you have to look for the particular form amongst the atoms and the molecules that make up that form, isn't it? Or if not, then you have to look for its directional parts. Because if the form consists of parts, then it must have directional parts, isn't it? So if we are talking about phenomena that are not form, then obviously you cannot analyze not the phenomenon which is not formed on the basis of its atoms or on its basis of its directional parts, isn't it? You can only analyze such phenomena on the basis of its temporal sequence. And let me give you an example of this is consciousness. Consciousness is not atomically established, and as such, neither does it have many directional parts. But consciousness is a stream of awareness, a stream of consciousness, isn't it? So when we talk about a stream of awareness, we are talking about temporal sequence, and as such, then we have to locate the phenomena within time, isn't it? And when we talk about time, we talk about the past, present, and future, isn't it? So if you want to look for the consciousness of the past, you will not be able to point to it because it has already ceased to exist. And then the consciousness of the future has not arisen. So if the if the consciousness really exists, then you have to be able to find it within the present moment, isn't it? If it really exists from its own side. So but yet, we're not saying that the mind does not exist. Obviously, because we talk about mind, isn't it? Mind. We say that I'm happy today or I'm not happy. So these statements are true, and conventionally speaking, it is true, isn't it? Conventionally speaking, but yet if we look for the real mind, the real consciousness, as I said before, you can't look for it in the past because it ceased to exist. You can't look for it in the future because it's not yet the reason. So the only moment of time to search for this real mind or consciousness is the present, isn't it? All right, isn't it? You look for it in the present, but yet the present is something that is dependently designated, isn't it? So if we're saying the mind exists in the present right there from its own side, then in which particular moment of the present time? Because when we talk about time, then we can break time down into smaller and smaller moments of time, isn't it? Right down to the. I'm not sure if there is even such a thing as the smallest unit of time, isn't it? So if you look for the consciousness in the present, then you will not be able to find it, not be able to point to something that is it, And if you cannot find the consciousness in the present, then how can you talk about the consciousness of the past and the consciousness of the future? Isn't it? Right? So, but yet we talk about the present. So the present exists as something that is dependently designated, depending on the context, relative to the length of time we're talking about. For example, we talk about the present century, or we talk about the current year, when we talk about the current month, or we talk about today, we say today, and then we talk about the current hour, and we talk about the current minute, and so forth, isn't it? Right? The present day, the present century, the present year, the present month, the present day, the present hour, the present minute, and so on and so forth. So, and all of these are factual statements, isn't it? They function and they exist conventionally, isn't it? But yet they are dependently designated, right? Isn't it? Because when we talk about the present century, we are talking about a period of 100 years. And then when we talk about the present year, we're talking about 365 days. And when we talk about the present month, we're talking about 30 days. When we talk about the present day, we're talking about 24 hours. And when we talk about the present hour, we're talking about 60 minutes. And when we talk about the present minute, we're talking about 60 seconds. And so forth, isn't it? So if we approach this concept of present as something that is being dependent, as something that is dependently designated, then it is fine. It works, isn't it? Conventionally speaking, isn't it? We can talk about the present day, present hour, present minute, and so on and so forth, isn't it? But yet the present is not something that exists from its own side. It is something that exists relative, right? Contingent on, basically depending on what you are comparing it to. Yeah, when we're talking about because if you're talking about present year and the present month, these are two totally different things, isn't it? Right? So anyway, the present does exist as something that is dependently designated, and it functions in that way. Right, but yet there is no real present, so to speak. If you look for the real present, you will not be able to find the real present, isn't it? Because you have to break down the time down to its smallest unit of time. Right? Then Nagarjuna in his Precious Garland, then he said, because the phenomena of forms are only names, space too is only a name. Without the elements, how could forms exist? Therefore, even name only does not exist. So, when we talk about form or matter, form or matter is made up of many different building blocks, and we are talking about building blocks of matter at the atomic level. No? So, and then we know in Buddhist philosophy, and we talk about the elements: the earth, fire, water, wind, and space. And so, when we're talking about earth, fire, water, wind, and space, and so forth, we're not talking about the earth that we can see with our eyes, the fire that we can feel. We're talking about these elements at the atomic level. And at the atomic level, basically, they exist in the form of potential, isn't it? Right? Like I think the earth element is something that is that has the potential of something that is firm. The water element, has a function of being able to coalesce, brings sticking the elements together and so forth, isn't it? So. And then and the minute space in between these atomic building blocks of matter, is what we posit as the space element and so forth. So basically, but yet if we search for these elements, we want to point to something that is something right there from its own side. We will not be able to point to anything that is the real earth element, the real fire element, and so on and so forth. And if that's the case, then if we cannot even point to inherently existent, findable building blocks of matter, then obviously the coarser forms, like the solid objects that we see, which are constituted by these building blocks, obviously cannot exist from their own side if their building blocks do not exist from their own side. And likewise, even then we talk about space, in particular uncompounded space. Uncompounded space does not exist as a solid realities, because we can talk about space in terms of direction, isn't it? Right, space in the east, the space in the west, and so on and so forth. So space is an uncompounded space is also something that exists as being as independence on other factors. Yeah. It is a dependently designated phenomenon. So, but yet in this process of analysis, when we try to look for the inherently existent phenomena, and then we start to be able to lose that concrete sense of things. Phenomena do not exist from their own side. So matter do not exist from their own side. Then even uncompounded phenomena such as uncompounded space does not exist from its own side. They all exist in mere name, isn't it? They all exist in mere name. Then sometimes we have this feeling that mere name then must really exist. There's a real mere name there from his own side. Sometimes we get this feeling, therefore, you see, Nagarjuna said, therefore, even name only does not exist. So there are two ways of translating this last line. So that is one way. Therefore, even name only does not exist. So that does not exist from his own side. Another translation is, therefore, everything exists as in name only. But, we are talking about the same thing, isn't it? Right. So when we say things exist in name only, means they are not findable. They do not exist from their own side, isn't it? So, yeah. So, but the essence, at the end of the day, the point here is that everything that exists, no phenomena exists from its own side. Everything that exists as being dependently designated.
Lost Rinpoche.
Maransolia Nangzam di Matsimba, you think a year part of chicken. Nangsuti, the Kajan Nangsu Imbache, Tako Tatartu, Trudayana, Kotsene, Takpa Jabachayundu, and when I Trudayavina, Maransu, you Dulujumun and Nanshi, Shambatar, Trudayavina, and Tashi Jabakane, Chese to Rogoyachilla. Ko mesedu drodevadi and niku medeni zuzu ju medeni tindeji red royati lo the true de beta lo sumo da mede beta ati imbati ene pembo pablo du umar injection na sunguduwa miku khate chuina nyawa na ne jimi toms tanganzo 다른 거 차와체 갑리야 아니 비기 chamakyao 나리야 아니 비기 추지도 초치도 삼바지 리달라이 추구여 밀레이 추구여 다 뒤도 추 통과여 추 능시지 통과를 추 능시지 통과를 다고 추돈드냐지 강사지 어 디사자들이야 아니 다 배저지네 같이 타녀를 좀 있네요 그 예줘야지 메시지 줘야지 그 가르스나 추 나왔다도 추 데르 매베인자 그 메시지 줘라스 어 베트나시 마란소야 민기 타녀이 온게 샤상 디sam시 마임바 유기 도루중문에 여바지기 아니 난시 셴바 어디 여바데 다 문에 여바이나 딱든 자인데 아니 녀고야지 발라 딩이게 만도아스 어디다 라트야로지기 배선치 두체 숨겨요래 다 숨녀 다 추이다와 숨녀 두조 빼르샤네 and Rajaje Yoimare. Pena Melon and Chishin Sunye Dinara, Chishin Rabuchi Nangior, Chishin Sunye Nangior, the Chishin Tomore. Chishin Sunye Nanshin, now that Chishin Tom, 지신의 동신도 지신의 수행나 대야 아니 지신의 수행 매버를 쓰나 말해 동바다 시고 당마다 근데 지금 깨 초발을 때는 나투야 깨 되는 것이지 근데 동바 매버이나 동배 수행 지신의 수행 되는 거 말해 야 멜론들이야 식스적 거제 두스 채비나 는거 말해 야 멜론다 동반이 봐라 나와 되면은 왜 되면은 나구나잖아 는거 말해 어떻게 지금 깨 것이 뭐잖아 미게야 깨 것이 차상하지 중반이나 나투야 그래서 나와래지 이나야 지신기 동대와 지신기 동신도 아니 가서 지신기 수행나 지신기 수행나 신도 지신기 동 나신도 동신도 배티는 신지기 말한서야 라문에 주변 동바 이나야 민기 탄핵의 원기 나 넣어야지 민기 탄핵의 원기 즉 상해 나서 여대버디 라문의 주변 동바 인대지 그니 도친 거야 근데 다 되네 배지 타게 되게 배지 직디 두래 다 추이 나왔으니 인지 싫어도 와 추나를 다외 송이지 난게 요래 어디 다 집어 죽는다 이는 내서 가가를 마도 지기 아니 나와 낭장이네 유생신 거발을 떼먹어 봐 아니 다외 똥 내도도 다외 똥나야 그 다외 송인데 나와 띵가 고구면도 와 다외 똥나야 다외 송이 나왔대 대문치니 그게 나는야 샤트야지 두아 다 도스제네 말한 속이 지다 라문의 주베 가제기 똥사야디 아니 가자디 뭐시네 아니 대다 똥한 때라 별로더라 아니 최는 영어를 잡았다 남들 고숨 그 제시인도 뭐 윤레숨 사지르와 뭐 담바 주베 똥아 유담바 주베 참아시와 주부 담베 몸바 메바스네 남들 고숨 간다 탈베 주고 숨숨 버와 갑자기 남들 고시에 숨거래 다 탈베 주고 쫓아와 숨래 다 뭐를 제베 갑라 아니 된 담바 찍다 도마 가루는 찍을 만대베 토네 찍다 두자기 땡지 토네 두야 아니 유담바 주베 참아시와 사야기 딜레 제베 갑라 아니 단단히 도지스메 땡지 다다 셴다 니가다 유메 가로네 다 깨니 끼기 유나 아니 당신 아니 야는 니가르게 야는 니가르 밑에 도스체네 도지스메 땡지 리불을 쥐어봐 아니 리부 덴베 몸바 메바사야 될 아니 유메 깽고 땡지 아니 다 두조 탐지 있네 간가 찍도 뒤대봐 될 하장 나와 쳐야 될 아니 땡중 그 땡지 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 주베가고 땡지 땡지 하도에 이네 단데 디캅이야 반대 tangyubi di kablaya ene tenji ki tensi di ta shen da thumo mai bagi riba di thone ta chi ki thaniga ene chikcha tu set huye ne ba chi yes tenshi chuni mindola jungshi ji de chuya de jiksu kunle yabushi tenji de ju chame ka asne chonen lamar buchegi permar de ba sayaki o ta tenji de be ndaba chi yoy mre ta de ba chi o dinandelya 두수요래 땡 사티기 라문의 주 매버들 람상 디 땡기요르 스테인 땡바테가 샤바티기 아니 라문의 주에 동아들 랑기 한기 녀트야지 땡시 추니면 돌아스 라문의 주에 동아 중 사티기 다 라문의 주에 동네 장매기 동과 가야 매베 동과 딘디지레베스나 마레스 디 사티기 아니 탄핵이 원기 상당에 내당도 강가 여투야지 중심 직대주야 됐어 도스체 담보티기 딱다세 치마티기 차다세 따지 탄핵가 땡 중사티기 도스체지 숨겨res 그제다 대상증면어 유로나
И таким образом, как уже говорил,
so although all phenomena exist as dependently designated, they do not exist from their own side. But yet, when phenomena appear to us, we are not satisfied, with the mere appearance, but rather, we hold on, to appearances as real. We assent to it, and we believe that things exist from their own side. So, if things exist in the way they appear to us, that is, if they exist truly, if they exist inherently, if they exist from their own side, then if we search for that object, the real inherently existent object, then the more we analyze, the more we search, the more we look for it, it should become clearer, isn't it? But the funny thing is that when we search for the imputed object, the real inherently existent object, isn't it? The funny thing here is that the more we look, the more unclear it becomes. So, and this must be a sign that obviously that thing that you believe, the thing that you believe, that you've been believing in, something right there existing from its own side, has never existed in that way. It must be a sign of that, isn't it? Right? So as Nagarjuna in his Precious Garland, he said, if the mirage was really water, then the closer you get, then the clearer it should become, isn't it? But obviously that's not the case, isn't it? I mean, under certain weather conditions, we mistake a mirage for water. Even animals mistake a mirage for water, isn't it? Right? Thinking that there's water, then we all run excitedly, towards the mirage, only then to see that so-called water disappear right before our eyes, isn't it? Right? So although there is appearance of a mirage as a water, we believe that it's water, but yet when we search for it, look for that real water, the closer we get to the mirage, the so-called water becomes more and more unclear, isn't it? Right? So why is this the case? This is a sign that obviously, right from the beginning, there's never been water there, isn't it? So likewise, we need to apply the example to the meaning here. Although everything that appears to us appear as existing right there from its own side, isn't it? And we even believe in that appearance, we assent to it, if things really exist in the way we believe them to be, then the more we analyze, the more we look for those phenomena, then the more we'll be able to point to something that is the phenomena. But that is not the case, isn't it? We look for the imputed object, you will not be able to point to anything that is it. You will not be able to find that object, isn't it? So maybe there are a couple of examples that might be helpful here. So take the example of a reflection in the mirror, isn't it? So whatever you put in front of the mirror, that object is reflected in the mirror. But yet, the object does not exist in the mirror. The mirror is empty of that object that's being reflected, isn't it? The object is not in the mirror, but yet at the same time, that fact, that reality does not stop the reflection from appearing in the mirror, isn't it? So if all the conditions for the reflection exist, come together, the reflection will appear in the mirror, isn't it? Right? So obviously you must have an object. You must place an object in front of the mirror. But even if you have an object in front of the mirror, but if the room is dark, then the object will not be reflected in the mirror. Or even if there's light, but if you smear, let's say, oil or butter, what have you, on the mirror, then you will not have the reflection, isn't it? Right? So when all the conditions that come together for there to be a reflection, the reflection will appear, and the reflections exist, isn't it? But yet at the same time, there is no there's no object in the mirror, right? So although there isn't a real object in the mirror, but yet the appearance of it exists, isn't it? You cannot stop the appearance, isn't it? Right? So likewise, although things and events do not exist from their own side, they do not exist right there from their own side inherently, but yet things function, they exist conventionally, right? good exists, bad exists, isn't it? We're not saying that things are non-existent. Then there's let me give another example: the reflection of the moon in water. Of course, with the exception of children, you know. So if we are talking about a normal person, you know, so whenever we see the reflection of the moon in the water, without needing any other reason whatsoever, the mere sight of the moon in the water is able to induce in us an understanding that there is no moon in the water, isn't it? Just by seeing the reflection of the moon in the water is able to induce in us an understanding that there's no moon in the water, isn't it? Right? But yet at the same time, in this understanding does not stop the moon from appearing in the water, isn't it? The appearance exists, isn't it? Yeah. I mean, this is common sense. I mean, it is our common experience, isn't it? So this is another example of how things exist. Although they exist in mere name, they are not findable, but nevertheless they function. They exist conventionally. They exist as something that is dependently designated. So that's some of the ways in which we can approach the topic of identifying the object of negation. Yeah. Then after we have identified the object of negation, then we need to apply reasoning to refute that to refute that conceived object, isn't it? Right? In Buddhist philosophy, we talk about the three doors of liberation. Right? We talk about the entity of the phenomena, the causes of phenomena, and the results that are produced by phenomena, isn't it? Right. So these are the three doors of liberation. So we analyze. We can settle on the view of emptiness through analyzing the basic entity of the object in question by, for example, using the reasoning of one and many or the one and different. Then when we analyze phenomena in order to understand how, in this case, compounded phenomena are empty of existing from their own side, then we can apply the reasoning that is called the diamond silvers, and then when we analyze the phenomena in terms of it being a result of a production, we can use the reasoning called the refutation of production from the four extremes and so forth. Anyway, so the point is there are different reasonings that can be used to ascertain emptiness. Yeah. And of course, these reasonings are applied on the basis of first having identified the object of negation. Yeah. But anyway, amongst all the different reasonings that one can employ, the king of reasonings is dependent arising. So it is said, yeah. And in particular, according to the middle way consequence school's assertion, the reasoning of dependent arising or dependent relation can eliminate the two extremes simultaneously, right? So there is this Tibetan Lama by the name of Chöne Trabak. In one of his compositions, which is a kind of a commentary on Jhado Rinpoche's In Praise of Dependent Origination, he said that dependent, open inverted commas, dependent does not discard suchness. Arising also shows the way of the world, or it shows a conventional existence. So what he's trying to say is this, yeah. If you understand the subtle dependent arising, if you understand it correctly, you will understand that the word dependent has this power to induce in you that things are actually empty of existing from their own side. Things are empty of existing inherently. The word dependent has that power. And then arising has the power of causing you an understanding that things do exist, although not from their own side, but they do exist conventionally, isn't it? So the word dependent eliminates the extreme of permanence, and the word arising eliminates the extreme of annihilation.
Tani Jigja to say, never you, two more but in nature use, in the Sunguyore. Chinding, Jangolano Zongo, Lamrin Chinding Ginala, Kazang Lundesia, Levasanji Tandadi, Bemo Papa Ludu, Sawa Sherabi, Katupungo Daina, Jetta Jivajendi, Katupungo Namneshi, Pumbu Singing every new shebe, what Siti Katun, Java Butapali, the Leva Sanjay Yangi, the Sheti Sine, and Tani, Namsha, and Paseve, Chajig, Gaja Kashudu, and Chajig Namsha, Demochen, Jotuyaki, or Tinji Tomba Trosha, Tomba Tinjung Trosha, or Tinjigi, Navanya, Sunach Yorba, or Tita Lamri Chinding Nalaya, and the Nashi Jabetone, and it did Chenayabu or Resum, the Tilia, Shifting Talent, the She gave Yumudua, Tambutula Gajan Nevene, and Yena Jidatuma, and Dachetan Dame, or Tinji Kabayabanashi, Temporary Yunayan Dachetan Dame, and Jidatume, cover to Yoguris, and it dembe to Metru, but in it dembe to Mamitsu. Ne shi tone jabaches dembe chi do metsu da dembe tuma metsu tola ka de pungo dai ne kya da jiba chen du yurus o di chi di tone ane ji kya tamba meteba tawa le cheba chu se ba tawa le ma jeba da meteba tawa o dinde ge riba tu zu tone jeba chene ane dembe chi do metsu ane dembe tate du metsu tela ane 가도 풍고 남내시 풍부 챙이 매를 유스하되 아니 풍고를 긴지 내순게 랑원의 조바이나 긴지 내순게 풍부 챙이데 매버 차루래 견신을 때문에 차루래 대인데 아니 다 가서 풍고 타데 주 세대 랑원의 조바 차바이나 아니 풍고디 디닥시다 가사디 다주디 아니 조거야 투야 거려야 말 풍고 거란 드마체야 야 모션 보던 저 차그랬으니 어 두스체네 어 내지 마숭도 두절이야 투모마이메 사시지 예대버지 이마르샤 디다가스니 쇼주슈 오두졸 톨이야 투나나 종다르나 근데나야데 개침지 이마르 단 규테 단 무시마 쉬어이나 강다르냐로 아니 지 마란스게 단데 최는 비내루 때는데 강사기 다음에 봐라 취기 다음에 봐서 되게 내루 때는 매버지 힘배 차네 내루 때는 매버 깔라 아니 룹자티 메가 인고레스 어 마인가 자니 용신 원 룹자 메가 제 내루 때는 배고레스 어 디임바티 단단디 우마사와 셔럽 배모 바블루 달레 마이 셴레 마이 니레 마이 유메 마이 스 어떤걸 메메메스 타니데 따그도 어 대전도 마세베 아니 단단 정글로만 정가고 쳔베 당연히 신임도 나나 아니 추천 규제라 취기다 넘버 9점이 Draba Megala Joba, Shindu Service, Dujiki Chutuzo, and Chuki da number Jesandi, Megatela, and Joba Shindu Service, and Senta Bakatula Inaya, Dodi Bunde, Tondayanda Pagi, Yativashibe Nalaya, Chenami Chodame, Kanshina, Chenami Tekuna Monimel, Deinos, or Tustin Sungudua, or Tikablaya Mega Sungudua. And Mega the job at the Usangi Kava Suluya, Mitumba Melas, or Tindea Sungudua, or Tin, and Tuja Megala, in a Dusti, Shagoyati, nature with the Imare. The Imate, Shanda Parisha, Sharing Munalina, and Tandandi, Sherry Pugi, and Rigibu, any Samacheva, the Sheraki Paro to Chimbal, Chitala Chas, Yakandi, Genesis, Kandishu, and 되게 재미가 전주스 말씀을 좀 보고 제레스 원주 이 사단의 샤란 도디고라 되게 재미서 리기포 뭐 강라가 샤라기 벌든 사메 제바제버데가 대단 넘버 따라 차대 풍봉하고 대다 양 랑신기 동반 넘버 양다바 제수 따라오스 나 계제다가 디마도 고 말해 풍봉하고 대다 양 랑신기 동반 넘버 따고 그랬으네 메가 수도가 랑신기 동점 그랬어 다 딘데 체제 아니 두자 메가 이버데 세부 숨도와 다 두자 메가 이인데 최제 탄예비 최제인데 까고르스나 대까고 말했어 대 공당기 더 같은 데면 나는 딘데 숨거래 공당고 좀 때문에 따외를 신자비 칠 많이 빠이 키둘라 많이 다신 보면 얘기 민상 하말루스 제 따와때는 매일 걸어요. 디네루타도 디랑시다도 가르를 제바레마도 배나 분별을 시간까지도 제바레마도 분바 두게 미두스는 제바 말스. 따에 랑시 제베 치르스. 따에 분배 배나 분배된 따와때는 매 니부때는 매 분별을 시간까지도 제베 치르스. 따에 랑시 제베 치르스. 다 랑시디 아니 유랑 투모 모임에 들루이면 들어봤다도 말한 소리야. 낭시 샴바 대다도 매바 사지기 어디 랑시 자베 칠 대다도 매바 네인도 아니 랑신티 다 녀버스 딱도 턴타바 마토도 녀버스 다베 랑신 자베 칠 마녀바이 키줄라스 따도잖아 마녀바 대가랑이 아니 가자티 키줄레스 다베 랑신 자베 칠 마녀바이 키줄라스 마녀 다신 고멘데스 다 마녀바티 분바까바 마르스 분베 랑시 말한 소리야 낭시 샴바다도 유딩이 여봤다고 대다도 매버도 키고를 마토지 진주 대다도 매버 키고를 마토지 공부도 키고 말했어 많이 다시 고민했어 많이 빠데 다시 공부 고민했어 공부도 안 다시 까봐 말다스 디인자 분배 띵도 공부 샥슈와 주교 또 대와 타니가 납샤티 야무진 저도스 많이 다시 고민배 제기 민상 아마르스 어떻게 내가 정말 쉬고도와 말한지 가자도 까인데 다시 까도 보고도와 디팅이 친절로도 전별로 디까버를 마도 지기 최근 가야메 동산지를 가 친구 말봐 디 내지 임바다스도 지당 말한소라 배는 분바지 나와 있나 분바 타니에 잠도 분반랑 주지 계진같이 착각가로 엔 베디 지도 제베 엔 나치 징징기 당징기 당 제베 분반랑 주지 나 분바시 주지 가장 분바도 드린 대가란도 섬섬을 지기 도스체 예서를 지기 나치 징징 당주 떠봐 주지 유랑도 투모 마인데 데루기 뭐네 주베 분바지 독산의 진수 딘진 담바신 주지 숨도와 티나네 단다 따와때를 배인도 가르까버레스도 데머신 주디 까버레 마도지기 타니에 정기 부모즈마데 까버 말봐 디 제버레 시아고야디 개침뭐 힘마다 저름지 당연히 신이되나 여바다 턴턴다 여바다 에네 주주기 캐버를 맞추게 깨면 뭐 연구 지송하지 봐 어다 디서라
So yesterday I
Таким
mentioned
образом, вчера я говорил о
in
том,
the story or life
я
story of Jhado
упоминал
Rinpoche, and that
историю
when he
Ламы
read
Цонкапы,
the verse number 1 of
когда
chapter 18, I believe, then
как-то,
he realized emptiness, isn't it, right?
когда мы говорили о
So
том, что он постиг пустотность
an extensive
во время
explanation of the reasoning used in the verse can be found in Jhado Rinpoche's middling stages, middling treatise on the stages of the path to enlightenment, on the middle length Amrim. So there's a deeper explanation over there, isn't it? And in the middling Lamrim, Jhado Rinpoche emphasizes the what we call the four the analysis through the four essential points, isn't it? So basically, it's an analysis or using the reasoning of one and different. Yeah. So of which here there are four essential points to ascertain. First, number one, the essential point of identifying correctly the object of a negation. Then the second essential point is to ascertain the entailment or the privation. So you have to understand, you have to ascertain that if something exists, right, it is either one or it is different. Or if it is either one with itself, or if it is not that, then it is something different also. Yeah. So once you have ascertained the entailment, then the third essential point is to understand how the object in question is not inherently or truly one. And then the last point, the fourth essential point is to understand how phenomena are not truly different, isn't it? Right. So there's a extensive discussion by Jhado Rinpoche in the middle length Lambrim. So on the basis of identifying the object of negation, and once you are certain in your heart that if something exists truly, isn't it? Right. It must be inherently one or inherently different. There must you must ascertain that there must not be any room in your heart to think that maybe there's some other possibility, right? So once you have ascertained that, then you apply the reasoning to understand how because if the phenomenon in question already exists inherently, there's either inherently one or inherently different. So what are the logical fallacies if phenomena inherently one? So then for example, if the self, the person is inherently one, means it is one with the aggregates, then there are all kinds of logical fallacies such as not remembering one's past lives and the fallacy of entailing that what karma that is created can go to waste, and will not produce results. There are all these logical fallacies I mentioned. Yeah, and then if a phenomena or if the person, for example, is inherently different from the aggregates which are the basis of the explanation of the person, then you will not be able to establish any kind of dependent relationship between the two. There's no way. There's no way to talk about the basis of destination and the imputed object, and there's no way, right? If the I is inherently truly different from the aggregates, isn't it? If the I is truly different from the aggregates, then there's no need for it to rely on the aggregates as such. Right? Then as such, then you cannot talk about the I as something that is imputed independence on the aggregates, isn't it? It's not even possible, right, in the first place. So I mean, these details you can find in the middle length Lambrim. So then when it comes down to the actual settling of the view with regards to the object emptiness, then it is said, in many texts that the object in question, emptiness, is a non-affirming negative. Emptiness cannot be an affirming negative. So this is stressed in many texts. And emptiness is an affirming negative. So you find statements like this made by Jhado Rinpoche in his masterpiece, The Essence of Eloquence. Even in the mind only school section of the text, there are statements saying that even emptiness is non-affirming negative. Yeah. So basically, the mind only school and the middle way school both of them assert that the emptiness, emptiness is a non-affirming negative. Of course, they have different ideas of what emptiness is, but both of them are the same in saying that emptiness is a non-affirming negative. Yeah. Likewise, in the heart of the Perfection of Wisdom Sutra, where it says, how should any son of the lineage train who wishes to practice the activity of the profound perfection of wisdom? He said that, and the Bodhisattva Masato Aya of Jagaddishvara said this to the Venerable Shariputra. Shariputra, any son of the lineage or daughter of the lineage who wishes to practice the activity of the profound perfection of wisdom should look upon it like this, correctly, and beholding those five aggregates also as empty of inherent nature. So this is a statement saying that emptiness of the aggregates is a non-affirming negative. When you negate the inherent existence of the aggregates, nothing is affirmed in its place. Right? Emptiness is a non-affirming negative. All right. Okay. So when we go about refuting the object of negation in order to arrive at the determination of the emptiness of inherent existence, in the process, there is no need for us to refute the basis of vaccination. There is no need for us to refute the basis of vaccination itself, or the basis of the emptiness itself. So, let's say we are using the vase as an example. We are trying to ascertain the emptiness of the vase. That's what we are trying to ascertain, isn't it? And in ascertaining the emptiness of the vase, we have to negate, the conceived object of our misapprehension of the vase as inherently existent. What we are trying to negate here is the conceived object, which is inherent existent vase. That's what we are trying to negate. And when we negate that inherent existence, what we find, what we discover at the end of the negation is the void or the absence or the emptiness of that of inherent existence. Yeah, we do not find the void or the absence of the vase itself. So when we're engaging in ultimate analysis, what we're negating here is the object of negation, inherent existence. We're not negating the vase. Yeah, we're not destroying the vase. The vase is left intact. It's not. So we're not saying that the vase is, you can destroy the vase in the process of analysis. The vase exists conventionally. It functions, isn't it? It has a certain shape. It is a bulbous, flat base, and it functions as to hold water and so forth. All of those exist conventionally, and all of that is not negated. So back to the example of a vase again. If we use a vase as an example, when we think of a vase, when a vase appears to us, so it is said that there are the various different ways in which the vase can appear to the individual, depending on who the individual is, basically, right? So there are for some people, and the vase appears as mere appearance. Oh, that's a high order, isn't it? But then there's also appearance of the vase as permanent, right? So, in philosophical language, we say, we have this mental image of a vase, whereby we mix up the past, present, and future, we collapse everything into one, as if the vase of the earlier moment is the vase of the current moment, and so forth. Okay, basically, yeah. So there's many ways, and in simple English, we have this appearance of a permanent vase. Then another mode of appearance of a vase is it appearing as existing from its own side. If you use technical language, it appears as if it has its own uncommon mode of subsistence, isn't it? Right? Okay. So anyway, of these three different modes of appearance that I've just listed, in establishing the selflessness here, in establishing emptiness here, what we are trying to negate here is the third mode of appearance. What we're trying to negate here is the vase appearing as truly existent, and in particular, we have this apprehension. We believe, we ascend to the appearance. We believe that the vast exists inherently. Is there? What we are trying to negate is, or what we're trying to stop here, is that mistaken way of apprehending the vast. That is apprehending the vast as truly existent. Yeah. Okay. We are not negating other modes. We are not basically, basically, end of the day, we're not negating the basis of emptiness itself. In this case, we're talking about vast emptiness, right? Emptiness of the vast. The vast emptiness is something in related to the vast itself, right? The vast is the basis of its emptiness, right? So what we're trying to negate here is the vast existing inherently. We are not trying to negate at all the vast itself. Okay, so yeah.
Выше цитатах.
Rinpoche, ni shela pa sha, shela so konda tea break tong ba sha. Loso.
И сейчас у нас будет
The time for short break.
Сейчас у нас по программе перерыв, по окончании которого продолжится вторая.
Half an hour break, I believe.
Всем большое спасибо. Я напомню, что сейчас получасовой перерыв. И, соответственно, через полчаса занятие продолжится. Now we have a break, half an hour, and in 30 minutes, please come back, and we will continue our teachings. See you in half an hour. Hello. Yes, Gisela. No, you can tell so in English and Russian we have on YouTube channel our already. No, if you tell, you can tell so maybe in 1 or 2 weeks we will make it nicely. Maybe. А maybe not. То есть, вот да, as now we have, да, 2 weeks или about там 2 или 3 weeks, because it need cut, check, and so on. But this, which we have now, they will be available, which we have now. Yep. Ну, at least 2, да. Да. Okay, да, I have same idea. No, I forgot about it, but yes. Ой, потом поговорим, не будем сейчас обсуждать. No, we have another questions from German and no English only yes from yesterday, but German they have 2 another questions and they ask maybe they will be more interesting. I can send you. Да, in English I got them.
Вот я думаю, что maybe English, if Rinpoche already answered, maybe we will not ask. Yes. Yes. And there is several questions from Russian. One very interesting, but quite difficult for translation. То есть about unifications of bliss and emptiness. I can try to translate, if possible. Да. Two from German. I will send one new from German, one new from Russian, and потом second one from German, if possible, и еще from Russian. Ну, подумаем, да, примерно так. Окей, тогда I will unmute myself and start speaking. Да, I want to eat banana. Coffee I got, да. No, everything was okay on first lecture. Of course, after Rinpoche go, I can in Russian speak. So. Yes, okay. See you. Да, ну if need, please write.
Так, и всем еще раз добрый день. Good afternoon, everyone. Мы продолжаем наше учение сейчас. Вот Jhado Rinpoche уже на месте. We are continue now. Yes, I finished.
Oh yeah, don't go to the degree way.
No, sooner Rinpoche.
Oh, that name. Kashi Chuma Tango Summer Jungudu. Between the Chashina, Jangula Monzonga Chimbi, Lamrin Chamutan, Lamrin Dumbunalia. Then dig Taki Dame, but then baby unare, Chituregi with Dame with our ten baby unare. Takanda Dame ten baby, Ribakande Chigitone. And Dame ten baby Kablas. And Tena Ribe Chevanas, Kansa Sola. Rang ngô chụp về ưu tiên từ chỗ chúng sẽ cái mình đủ có nhắm bắt ta ưu tiên này ta khán giả sinh ra những cái mình đủ à sắm rồi thế là tên này chỉ ngaran chụp chỉ sosorani là gì này đấy kêu xem là gì này đấy nào anh din nam chăng anh phim phim tu chава chăm anh thích ở đấy sira kale khao maris ô cái này anh nhớ lo na Tena ribe chebana kansa sola da kansa da chö pungso chö rang ngo chube yidung du du chungse kya mendu ko nyambata tela tene nawan dit namjang da be de ji so so do ji pimbu du chawa cham kawa mingis tendatis ume chumdal ya gabuyo ba tongmani ki tawal gabuyo umne chumdal meshi rangshin mebe sul tembe chū tēndū tēpa tamche la wōng yās, rāngshī mē bē jī tā tāwa tēnā bē bē jī bēchā rū tēndē jī chūngsē tēpa tūzō liyā tēndē bē chōpa tī yōngu rēs, tēndū tēpa tamche la wōng yās, kāsā nīs rāngi ngō chū bē rāngshī malū bā kēk bā tāngs, rāngi ngō chū bē rāngshī malū bā mī bē tēsū kāngā shīk tū yā jī, rāngshī mē bē kāngsā la sō bā tā 최전 가사로 소바 등이 레 소바 보다 리부 용어발로 소바 조발라 녜바 띵네 룽데 대남수 조투베 니조데 신다점도 송에 우메다와 신도 녜가와 이노스 다 우메다와 깔 카고 용 도야기 nen가데 가사드 가바르스나 랑고 모투베 랑시 말루바 키 용드 디 네베 티가랑기 아니 최전 등이 답변은 강사로 지나 레 소바보다 리부 용어발로 소바 땡중기 지 윤대 땡중 이날 자제 남샤테 땡중 가에 있나야 딜람사 딜 니아반 롱투야지 에네 니소티 조투야티 딱깔 가버레스 숨고도와 오 따티 우메다와 깔 가사티 데이머레 딱 강달 오 rang ngo tu mal rang shi malu ba tu ke yundu ane tende shi ba tomba mai ba o ta ti lamsa khatu thela ti ko megare chuchen du ba jag mare ti tinde tawa nge be lo ti gi chaba ma nya be jingla tawa te tela be ni tele nyam sha ina re tawa ti gi nube julia ane lamsa 규ген 차시기 내때네 에네 지 레소보다 리뷰 용어를 소가 강사한테 냐바 동충수 야도스체 얀렌트야 예데지 오다티 딱갈 가슈레스 지제 오테 숨이야 오다 슈작사 된지 뭐야 이 말에 땡디 동배 더 트러스샤 동배 땡중 트러스샤 오티 진행 가지 마다섬 오티 지슈야
И здесь, по всей видимости, придется привести.
So Rinpoche just cited a verse from the middle length Lamrim, which I'm trying to find in English, but I have not found it yet. But basically, so both the great treatise on the stages of the path of enlightenment and Lamrim Chenmo and the middling Lamrim, in both you'll find different reasonings that are used to ascertain emptiness, whether it is whether it's the reasoning of the dependent arising or the reasoning of one or different. The thing here is that when on the basis of identifying the object of negation. Then when you apply the reasoning, then you might get this feeling that the I and others do not really exist from their own side. So to get this feeling or this as if that the I or the object in question appears like a shimmering light. It's kind of a shimmering appearance. It's like almost it's not there. So Jhado Rinpoche is saying to get this experience is not really that difficult, but on the basis of ascertaining the absence of the object of negation, and then through the force of the ascertainment, and then when you turn your mind to phenomena, when you arise from meditative equipoise, the most difficult thing here is to really get this understanding that things do exist, they do function. Although they exist immediately, they do function. There is an I that is the experiencer of happiness and suffering. There's an I that accumulates karma. So this is the most difficult part. Yeah. So Jhado Rinpoche says that. So a correct understanding of the view has to encompass these two aspects. You must ascertain the emptiness of inherent existence, but yet at the same time, that ascertainment must be able to induce in you an understanding that conventionally things do exist. There's an I, there are others, and there's the I who is accumulator of karma. You have this definite ascertainment that there's definitely someone experiencing the effects of karma. There's somebody accumulating the karma, and so forth. So this is the most difficult thing to realize in the middle way view, isn't it? So one's realization of emptiness should not lead to one denying the existence of the object itself, the basis of the emptiness, isn't it, right? So let me try to find that quotation. So I'm done with the translation. I'm just trying to find the quotation. This ephemeral.
Los Rinpoche.
pen tande tinde sungbati lamrim chijung na tinde sung shabati na khung de khande re shubina pande dawa tabe 오만 주변나라 용도가 숨도가 뭐는 타다 뭐고 매바 또수 슈바니 누가 체라 지다라 다다른 신신달라 콩도 주바 달라도는 거 많이 넣었어 다지 추쟁기 추 되게 참말로 랑문의 주바 이 유등이 여봤다고 나시 샤바다도 투도 문도 제바체네 대다도 투 매바 지 내야지 대점지 깔라 가지 말았어 뭐는 타다 뭐보매서 된다 말고 랑문의 말도 또수 슈바네 누가 체라스 다 대다른 신신달라스 랑시 매바 녜베 제텔라 아니 민기 타니게 온기 여점식이 아니 조투야 랑시 신다工作 참모 민가 따여서 조조 디 에네 콘도추바 달라트네가 마이노스 다 간다 에네 동거 녜바 텔라테네 디 뉘베 떡기 땡중 람산 텐투야 땡중 녜베 떡기 디 뉘베 떡기 아니 랑은 주베 동바 한디 텐투야 대달 거바디 오다 단디 상기 좀 된데기 마주비시베 도이 갑리야 숨고도와 강시 깬레 깨와 대마제 달라 깨베르시 여마이 깬라라레 칸데 동바시 강시 동인시데 바여이스 다디 치디 세부 시부지레스 제제 송제 다 칸다 동바 땡중다 땡중 동베기 베데 다 맹아 세 신도 세바 송베 에네 다 디시시베 송세시지 디임바 아니 허던 난가바기 간단디 로존님의 세나라 디차르숭다나도와 나치 디차르숭단 롱신다 장교 매버도 말아 말했디 디차르숭다나야데 딜내 친구 시부지 예데버지 숭고도와 다 가르르스나 게 셴라 때네 용기 여베 이나스 아니 셴라 때메기 라왕오기 주주도 용하여 말했어 강시 깨네 깨와 대마제스 깬셴라 때네 깨와 인자 딱거 라왕이 깨와 되어 말했어 딱이 당고도 마제 마도 그 숨음도 같이 깨네 깨 대마제스 딱 마제 바디 마제 루도 가르스나 달라 깨르시 여마인스나 마제 바디 지당거 마제 깨져 말해 깬셴라 때네 라왕이 깨와 되어 말했어 디슈도 세부스무도 다 디기 땡중 동배 조수셔도 세부스무도 깬셴라 때네 충바 인자 에네 강라 때문에 라왕 여바티 동바레스 같이 깬네 겨 대마게 달라 깨베라시 여마레스 땡중 동배 조수셔야 됐어 깬라 라레 강데 동바시스 깬라 라레 강데 동바시 다와나 자메기 동바레스 자메기 동바 말레스 랑원의 주베 동자 깬셴라 라레바티 이 용토바티 중바레스 랑원의 주대여나 깬셴라야 돼야 연구 말레스 군인이 가다 드레스 양면은 깬셴 때니 주거래 양면은 깬셴라 마데 라왕 주거래 그러니까 마데 라왕의 문의 주베 동자 애니 깬셴 때네 애니 중도거든 중바레스 깬라라레 강시 동바시 강시 동이시도 봐야 있어 되게 동바 땡중 조스셔도 돼 도체 숨이봐 어디 단데디 타니 지자도 세초 어디 마트비시도 도티나네 어떤데 숨고도와 나 뒤져 거르도절이야 야야 잡아체 이 야야 잡아체네 아니 단데 저름체 남들 준비나리야 대나 차도 거봐서 조조라 주바나야스 나 차차야 꼬로꼬로라 소베 수수 니리니레기 이 지금 룽아기 개와 간단 간치기 여베 있네요 나르다 제베 예베 지심벌 제네 대달라 슈베스 아니 제 탐제 유마다고 차발라 랍데 대응안에 대다 차오스 대라 장내네 따와 전부 점기가 되는 유마신도 차로스 라면 주박 동나야 아니 유게 된데 나서라 때네 상에 나서 유마신도 차투야지 어디 도신 라고레스 어떤데 숨고도와 어디
И здесь я хотел бы привести...
So, the source of what Rinpoche said in his Lamrim Chenmo and the middle length Lamrim, can be found in Chandrakirti's entering the middle way, where Chandrakirti said pretty much the same thing. Yeah, it is not that difficult to understand, to come to an understanding that things are empty of existing in the way they appear. Although although all phenomena appear to be truly existent, but we analyze, whether phenomena have any objective existence or not. Then it is not that difficult to come to an understanding that phenomena are empty of existing in such a way. But the difficult thing here is that while you while you are perceiving the emptiness of phenomena, the difficult thing is yet being able to pause it and comfortably, at the same time, how everything can function and exist in mere name, as merely imputed by thought. So that is the really difficult thing, isn't it? Right? So what we need to achieve is this, yeah. And our ascertainment of emptiness must induce in us an ascertainment of dependent arising. Yeah, if you really think that you have understood emptiness, your understanding must induce in you a certainty that things and events do exist and they do function because they are dependently arisen. Yeah. Likewise, a correct understanding, full-fledged understanding of dependent arising must be able to induce in you an ascertainment of certainty in your heart that therefore things are empty of existing from your own side. Yeah. So this is what we need to achieve, and this is difficult, isn't it? Right? So there is this quotation from the Questions of the Anavatatta King of Nagas Sutra, which I think is one of the Buddha's one of the clearest statement the Buddha ever made with regards to how emptiness and dependent arising are complementary. And the verse goes like this: those which are produced from conditions are not produced. They have no inherent nature of production. Therefore, those which rely on conditions are said to be empty. A person who knows this emptiness is conscientious. So the Buddha said, those which are produced from conditions are not produced. No? So the Buddha is not saying that phenomena which arises due to causes and conditions are not produced. Obviously, they are produced, yeah, isn't it? But what is the meaning of not produced here? This is indicated in the next line, right? Where the Buddha said they have no inherent nature of production. What we're refuting here is inherent production or inherent creation, isn't it? Right? It is not that production does not exist. It is just that production itself does not exist inherently. So this the first two lines of this verse it shows how correct understanding of dependent arising, how it will induce in one a correct understanding of emptiness. Yeah. So because things are dependent, because if something is dependently produced, obviously it must be empty of inherent production, isn't it? Right. Then you have the third and the fourth lines. The third line being those which rely on conditions are said to be empty, right? So the Buddha is not saying that things are empty in the sense of not existing. Empty or emptiness does not mean nothingness, isn't it? So why? Because precisely because things are produced in dependence on causes and conditions, they are empty of being produced independently. That's the point, isn't it? And precisely because phenomena are empty, Therefore, they can exist, they can come into being in dependence on causes and conditions. So this third line in this quotation which I've just cited shows how correct understanding of emptiness must induce in us a definite ascertainment, a certainty that things are dependently arisen. So then Rinpoche then cited another verse, section from the Lambrim Chemo, the Milalang Lambrim, in which Jhado Rinpoche advised that while we are going about in our daily lives doing whatever we need to do, like making sangam and so forth, we should train to see how all things are illusory, although things are empty of existing inherently, but nevertheless, due to the coming together of different causes and conditions, you have a variety of appearances of different phenomena. So one should train in such a way.
Lama aya deve umashi gebenan lule loa chishindu timu kule nenyu tejring yomo tamje kya timu chobe chomor en tenjin raba jungwana thona timu jung tejring beba kunji tamde khona nyeber chas bena migo ombote na ombote tozolo pa chobge mare soso ombo kha yores luge ombote ombo yongzolo ba chabdevres lule loa chishindus tgana shinchigi 지 이동원 좀 차바다 이동원 좀 야단다 두서두서 지 차배 년벌로 미두고 고면한다고 아니 지 야당의 년벌라 참바고 말다고 때문에 년벌라 아니 지 땡지 잡아 중에기 지 공부다 감다 괜찮아 써봐 땡지를 잡아 고면한다고 두서두서 갑들 지 녀모 소소게 거는 점을 해마도 지 찔을 켜배 녀모 거는지 말했어 대지리 녀모 탐지 짱 아니 때문 좀 유스타 때문 당지 딘지 뒤좀 더베이나 녀모 말로 좀 더야지 연거스 찔러켜지 아나 아니 녀모 탐제 봐좀 더야지 수익 좀 그래서는 땡지 저와 중 주센도 체네 유랑 뭐 주베 동배니기 된 땡지 저와 중 통나 때문 좀 유스 지단 땡지 생긴디 최기 내로 때문에 지단도 군도 되면 돈다도 얘기는 땡지도 군도 되면 봐 돈다도 말아 봐 땡지 군도 되면 통네 아니 때문 강 정글 소야 꼭 카도 깨져 말아 봐 땡지 교전도 제배 최남기 내로 되거나니 땡지 지금 내가 있는 땡지라고 좀 통나 때문 좀 유스 되게 아니 녀모 당지 땡지 좀 토르스 대체는 배바꾼 들었다 내려야 탑시 유구즈도 리벤 남나 고트면 거네 에네 땀데 코나냐 버쳐서 땀 에네 다음에 땡지기 되거나니 땡지 조에 좀 유선도 제베 에네 다음에기 돼 에네 동반이기 된디 에네 배제 체배거네 순거야 내가 들으스 제제 다 숨버데 다 때버대냐를 간다 되게 때는 배야지 녀모시지 지기 돌아 순거야 임바래 녀모 배자와티 만 점고가 봐이나 디단 진당 무슨 가게 다음에 또 별로 그 양다버지 뭐야지 임바지 말 다음에 또 별로 지다 지라면 너도부터 참에 다음에 숨그래 랑유가 매지 숨그래 레데 다 동바 땡중 트로스야 땡중 동배 트로스야 난동 렌조 많이 봐 직접도 아니 네버동 송 렌트야기 따와지 거기에나 아니 다 반대 탄교가 몸을 두고 따와 반대 나와 잡에 따와 뒤 밑에 탐제 식투야지 밑에 대소 강이 식투야지 밑에 탐제 친진 밑에 탐제 지체 봐서지 지다 하마지 루데바지 자인의 매다바 지 대신기 하마지 루데로 근데지 큰 매다바 다 밑에 대소 강가 마 식투야 밑에 탐제 식투야지 다 근데지기 아니 다와때는 배워야 돼 개천부를 했어 다나 텐다와데 지 뱅고 파워 루두 yap세 다 아니 반대 지 정보로는 정보 친구 대단한 게 착수도 지르베 아니지 난줄 좋체 아니 삶에 지 착체 두저qab이야 아니 두저 고아르다 무고아르세기 그 개침부지 간리로 알아 benaka yu chaje chimbo nyime zoba chimbo tuju kabli ji tande gi ume tawa tan be ya digi goare be mogores ta ti goai bat permissive sevres tanda de duma gizu marbe gu gurchi gna charchu kangen ramdu chis je medi chanje ji karina chi da jes ene chu chuni de ba karina ti tes mi ko to ba tene chesme ene 주제 메디와게 담발라 때네 아니 딱더바 말루바 용스타바 시바치 총송스 어 든데스네 바다 말베기 문날 든데 숨고도와 아 주제 메디와게 엔데 따와타도 칸데레스나 아니 돈 대코나니 주바사지 어 잡이지도와 어 라메 맹아기 마젬 우마야 등고점도 치스 어 라메 맹아 반덴 다와타바 따데 주제 메디와게 로메기 디 데바트 만자 윤두 어디 라마티 라만다 저도 라멘 맹아 그 마젬 우마야 등고 점도 치스 간다 안된 다와 잡았다 뭐 파글루비 아니 슈나 때네 다 오메다가 때는 그 구여바데 주제 메디바가 고바 티 말에 차진 고바 티 말에 어 차진 티야 자와 콩 지다 다와 때는 메바깔라 어느 유기 다와 때는 베윤두 뭐 파글루두 yapse 어 디기 타기 공도 시대 다 디기 디가 로가야 됐다 갈서를 유체 두저 돈에 다 루트야지 임바 다 저거 첨벌을 차 샤베 있나 상황은 유고 저거 첨벌을 차 샤베 있나 단단히 군행아치 쇼도와 군행나마데 군행 롱체람 잠바스 어 공기 아니 je dunda naso kosums o tende je o tuju kagi ene tawe namsha tege teya ene ji bengo baba ludu yapse ki tawata dawa chi ma chi sungu yeda ba chi ta tene kunje chimade kunje jimen ba kunje jimen be ki gar sungu dosna de gurchi sungu dowa tanda di nge di kanen jigi yusna nyengo sorop losan donga chugi gyatsu sel nyengo sne ene yingyu ene 겐덴바게 캐바친 거 계시 지금 바래 콩 쪽chen 냠셰나 어 차chen 냠셰나 된대지 캐바친 거 지금 바래 깜모르 무치기 양내 양도 디토리아 지 나저 난데 어 콩거 된대스니 마스 디샤부티나 컨디스무도스나 대양 군제 치메스 딱고 무지도 윤전셰라 퍼진다 주자시 제베 병고 파고 루두 냠시샤 중 셰베 충고데 나달라 쇼스 딱 콩고 동반이기 따와 뒤거트 공부하지 셰인 단데 직제들이 딱 냥아 냥지도와 딱고티 직제들이 돈다데 봐 슈베 있나 동반이기 냠는 거데 공부도 코인도 람상 뱅고 바골루도 이 아니 지다 냠나 시샤르데 딱 디기 지아 다리소 주부 천배 어떻게 되고 공부도 마지 다 시작이 무슨 거야 인사와 다 텔리아 디스트레시티 아니 셰베 충고도 나달 쇼스 어 다디기 공부치마 치시바 세부chen 때는 배야 어른시 예매 때는 배야 태랑기 제발 어떻게도 참 용수 줘봐도 아니 세시티 근데 다 타베기 어디는 연구여자 셰베 충고도 나달 쇼스 어다 이 상황은 유비 아니 군게 지면은 것도 붙이 차샤고 있느냐 아니 지 상동반이기 돼 지 저거 첨부 냠네 어디 지 따와 때는 몇주대 뱀고 파벌루도 근데 다와 잡에 공부리야 찍어치는 너도 봐야 어딘데 지 공부 찍도 너 대인바 어딘데 인도 어니다지 차전을 보고 연하면 언디 적정이 냠는 고기 연하면서는 흉두저 토네 또 뭐이 뭐 찍어치는 루트야 두저 공기에 여인 말아.
So I've talked quite a bit on how emptiness and dependent arising are mutually complementary and not contradictory. Yeah. So why is it so important to meditate on such a thing?
Ариадева говорит.
This you can see the reason as was stated by Aryadeva in his foreign stanzas, in which he said, just as the body sense power pervades the body, bewilderment abides in all afflictions. Therefore, all mental afflictions are overcome through overcoming bewilderment. Those who, when dependent arising is seen, bewilderment does not arise. Therefore, with all endeavor here, I will set forth just discourse on this here. So Aryadeva used the example, or used the body sense power as an example. So the body sense power is something that pervades all other sense powers in the body, yeah, isn't it? And likewise, he said that ignorance, underlies, all afflictions. Although afflictions such as attachment and anger have their own specific antidotes. For example, you can meditate on ugliness to counteract attachment. You can meditate on love to counteract anger. And with regards to basic ignorance, you can meditate on the enumeration or the list of the classification of different phenomena and dependent origination and so forth. But since ignorance, in particular, the ignorance grasping at itself, underlies all phenomena, all afflictions. So if we destroy this self-grasping ignorance, then we will be able to eliminate all afflictions, isn't it? Right? And this self-grasping ignorance is eliminated when a dependent arising is seen. So therefore, he said, when dependent arising is seen, bewilderment does not arise. Therefore, with all endeavor here, because this is so important. So he said he will set forth just discourse on this. He will try his best by all ways and means to explain this. So Aryadeva said this in his foreign stanzas. Yeah. So in general, when we talk about dependent arising, out of the two truths, the ultimate truth and the conventional truth, dependent arising itself is not an ultimate truth; is a conventional truth, isn't it? Right. So, but yeah, having said that, we are not saying that dependent arising is emptiness. Dependent arising is not emptiness. Dependent arising is a conventional truth. But with dependent arising as the reason, then one comes to ascertain the emptiness of inherent existence, isn't it? Right? Yeah. And it is said that the root of all the mental afflictions is the self-grasping ignorance. So in order to eliminate the afflictions, you have to eliminate their roots. And the root is the self-grasping ignorance. And the only way to eliminate this self-grasping ignorance is to realize a selflessness, isn't it? Is to generate the wisdom realizing selflessness, which itself is a mind whose mode of apprehension is it directly contradicts the mode of apprehension of ignorance. That's why wisdom realizing selflessness is the only antidote to ignorance, because its mode of apprehension directly contradicts that of ignorance, isn't it? Right? I'm trying to look at my notes. I cannot figure out what I've just wrote. So anyway, the point here is to understand how dependent arising and emptiness are mutually they're complementary, right? And they're not contradictory. So correct understanding of subtle dependent arising should bring about at the same time an ascertainment of the emptiness of inherent existence, and likewise a full-fledged understanding of realization of emptiness must induce at the same time in their heart a certainty or a certainty or this feeling that things do exist, they do function, things are dependently arisen. Yeah. All right. Okay. So we need to develop the view to the point whereby there's nothing for ignorance to latch onto. We must destroy, the mode of apprehension of ignorance to the point whereby there's nothing, left there for ignorance, to hold on to. There's not a single atom of true existence that the ignorance can latch onto, can cling onto, and thereby in giving rise to the other afflictions, isn't it right? Okay. So having said all of this, so is this view of this particular view of emptiness and dependent arising something peculiar only to the followers of Jhado Rinpoche? Is it just is it something that is only subscribed by certain individuals like Nagarjuna and Chandrakirti? Then what about the Kagyupas? The Kagyupas are very much focused on the practice of Mahamudra or the Great Seal. And the Nyingma tradition, there's a strong emphasis on the great completion or Dzogchen, Dzogchen, isn't it? So in the practice of Mahamudra and Dzogchen, is the view of the middle way necessary or not? If you think about it, it is clear that you need the view of the middle way in order to practice the Kagyu Mahamudra and the Dzogchen of the Nyingma Pasya. So let's take, for example, the Kagyupas. They're very much into Mahamudra. Right? So, and Milarepa is a very important figure in the Kagyupa tradition, right? Kagyu tradition. So in one of his songs, basically, Milarepa said, he met Maitripa on the banks of the Ganges River. And in dependence on his instructions, Milarepa was able to eliminate all the elaborations, isn't it? So, so this is you can find this in one of the songs of Milarepa, and in one of the commentary explaining the view of the Maitripa. Maitripa himself was a follower of Nagarjuna and Chandrakirti. He was a follower of the middle way school. So if that's the case, then this makes Milarepa a follower of the middle way school view as well, isn't it? Because Milarepa said by depending on the instructions of Maitripa, he was able to eliminate all the mental fabrications and elaborations, isn't it? Right? All right. Okay, then what about the system of the great completion or the Dzogchen of the Nyingma tradition? Right? So there are two very important figures in the Nyingma traditions. They are the two Kunkenpas. So the first you have Kungen Longchen Ramjam. So he composed a couple of very important texts. There's a set of texts collectively known as the Seven Treasures, Zerdun, and then you have the threefold cycle of resting the nature of the mind. So if you examine those texts, it is clear that when delineating the view, his way of delineating the view is similar to that of Nagarjuna. Then if you look at the writings of Kungen Jingme Lingpa, so if you look at the writings of Kungen Jingme Lingpa, and with regards to this, Kungen Jingme Lingpa, in one of his songs, he was basically talking about the middle school view, yeah? And in explaining this particular song of Kungen Jingme Lingpa, there's this Geluk Geshe by the name of Nyingun Sunrap, which His Holiness has praised many a times. Yeah. So Nyingun Sunrap was a Geluk Geshe, but he was also a practitioner of the Mahamudra tradition of the Kagyupas and the great completion system of the Nyingma Persona. Okay, so in one of his texts, he mentions that when he thinks about the view, his mind turns to Nagarjuna, And in that text, he also mentioned that it was Chandrakirti who made the clearest explanations of Nagarjuna's view. So if you put all of this together, these are just scriptural references or scriptural authority, so to speak, indicating that the view of the middle way, as explained by Nagarjuna and Chandrakirti, it is something that is needed even when one is practicing the Kagyu Mahamudra and the great completion of the Dzogchen of the Nyingmapas.
Los Rinpoche.
같네. 어디 제곰다 조곰기 거기 야 숨추민다 나서지 연구도와 변 차전다 조전다 도 조금 조전 마송대지 단대지 고물루두기 애니 슝 애니 반다 다와타베 슝 애니지 도초기 같이 다와때는 베베 디캅들이야 애니 당부자바체 애니 자바체 차리 젤이야 당부 신내두 신내티 다 따도는 곰도네 따와초스 루니여레 다 단된 사람도 지 신내 가사탄다 차전 공단다 늦으되게 공도네 따와초스 애들에 당부 센지도 네 신내도 차베죠 따와때란데 엔 따와때란데 차베죠 따도텔이야 얘네 미고 캔네데네 엔 공도네 따와초스 애들 딘디지레 다오 단데디 도초 갑라마 수윤드 아네 양야 제네 제베 텐들이야 아네 냠버시다 야 미세트 침베 갑라야 수녀는 소버 펠자네 야 양요 따와 텐지 제베체네 야 양요 아네 다베 띵들이야 냠버시다 텐데체네 제금 조체네 숭구여바지 당가 라메기 슝다 지 조첸기 슝다 차쟁기 슝 뒤주갑을 조금 조체는 로고야지 어 근데 인도 지 길루바기 에너지 따왔다는 배야지 제금레 차쟁 조첸기 따왔다는 배야지 조금레스 근데 깨지 맨데지 어느 뒤 빵다다 쿵도데 간데여 슈베이나 남림 단단 중변하는 근데 숨도 와 따와 종루라 기름다 조림기 제톱기 값 가시도 대코나니라 제네 일레 제바 예장스 제톱가 기름 조림기 제톱가 대코나니라 제네 일레 제바 예장 룰라 네도 넘베 누바토베 조림베 냠샤도 대코나니 용원나 따도도 샤네 곰바 네버 고장스 다지 조림기 룰라 네도 넘베 누바토바 야면은 룰라 네도 넘바 마임바 리바 제노푸네 왜세 냐지리아 딘데 제바깔라 에네 조금티 곰바 네버 고장스 라동 제금 슝셴네 중어따 미체토스 디캅텔이야 에네 슝셴 가르샤스나 돌럼기 슝네 셰샤야기 에네 주변남라 투메고네 자바치긴 치야데 에네 갑티디 지금 말레스 어 두스친 디캅버티 이세부치 캔고도와 딱고 유제 셰바티 에네 딩세 토르 침바다 타르 침바다 딘데 지금 누바치글라 때네 아니 조금 조체야 단다 아니 로라베 왕도 진다 따왔다는 베인도 조금 조체야 어 디임바티 아니 지 루겐덴바다 상아 닝메 캬버다보다 딘데 마임바 지다 두다 내가기 아니 캬버지게 토네 루이여바티 캬데 개지모 단달람린 중베치레
И также очень важно знать о том, что медитация бывает...
Then another important topic to address is whether the practice of emptiness is done primarily with analytical meditation or placement meditation. So sometimes you hear that in the when practicing the Mahamudra or the great perfection or great completion, the Dzogchen, the primary meditation is placement meditation, isn't it? Not analytical meditation. Whereas in the tradition of Nagarjuna, Chandrakirti, or in the tradition when it comes to delineating the view, or in the sutra tradition, in this perfection vehicle when you are delineating the view, it is said that first you engage in analysis, right? Then on the basis that and then you cultivate calm abiding, isn't it? So is this is is this really a correct way of looking at things at all times? It's not really the case. So yes, in the Mahamudra approach, it is said that the primary approach is that of placement meditation. So within meditation, within having a place one's mind fixated on a particular object, once you develop concentration, then you search for the view. So you meditate first, and then on the basis of that, you search for the view, isn't it? Whereas in the sutra approach is that you first analyze, isn't it? You analyze to gain an understanding of emptiness. Once you have gained an perception of emptiness, then you stop analyzing. Rather than you place your mind focus on what you have ascertained, isn't it? Then over time, when that feeling or the understanding of emptiness becomes a little bit unclear, then you are advised to analyze again in order to bring back the ascertainment. And once the ascertainment is clear, is manifest again, then you place your mind on it without analyzing. So you alternate between analytical meditation and placement meditation, right? So these are the different approaches. You find the view first, and then you meditate, or first you meditate, and then within that, then you find or you discover the view, so to speak. Then it is said that it is said that in the higher Sukha Tantra, or in the Tantric Mahamudra, or in the practice of the great completion, the practice of placement meditation is primary. Okay, so we cannot say that. The Gelupa approach is primarily analytical meditation, and the main approach in the other traditions such as the Kagyu Mahamudra or the Nyingma's Dzogchen is primarily placement meditation. That you cannot say. This is clear. Why? If you look at Jhado Rinpoche's middling lumbrim in the section of calm abiding, there in which he talks about the type of meditation that is done while when the practitioner is on the completion stage. So indeed, basically he said that for when you're practicing tantra so there is the generation stage and the completion stage, isn't it? So on the completion stage, through the practice of penetrating the vital points of the subtle body, isn't it? Then one seeks to basically make the mind more and more subtle, isn't it? Right. So as the mind becomes more and more subtle, and then culminating in clear light, the point is to in that phase of those stages of meditation, the primary meditation on the completion stage is not analytical meditation, but rather placement meditation. And this is so in the completion stage because of the special practice of penetrating the vital points of the subtle body. So basically, when the mind through the power of such tantric meditation, when the mind becomes more and more subtle, then the primary approach here is to engage in placement meditation and not analytical meditation. So my point here is this: we cannot say that the Gelupas primarily emphasize analytical meditation, and not placement meditation, and whereas the Kagyupas or the Nyingmapas necessarily always prioritize placement meditation. That is definitely not the case. You have to understand. So when you're discussing or you're analyzing this particular issue, you have to be specific about the time and the context. Okay, so this I think is an important point. Yeah. Yes.
Close Rinpoche.
And Nyamsha Tindu, and Jogum Zocheni, Nga Lame Cup, and Jogum Zocheni, Yongo Jusen, Condition, Sungur Chevena, and Jermuchegi, Rima Denzo Kablia, and Rishi Tungi Mugomba, the Hachimbo, said to Chen Gomba Yis. Tinde the Hachimbo Yishi Nam Java tea, Tomba Nilaya, Jarve Gone, Tagaranlia, and a metabole, Nyamba Shabayi, Suaji, Yungudua, or that tea, Tizuted, and that Tandeka, the Chachin Gom Satia, or Tindichil Imbare, Gomugomta Titatumba Imbare, or the Ilu in Dankarasna, Chachin Tilly, you Chachin Tilly Savi, Tina Tanda, Maram Chajachimo Sayati, Takuntawati, Chachin Tilly Siji, Ton Duarwa, Chan Tomber she this, Yan Kove Chele Dros, Chembo Sundu Juba Insen, Cha Chen, Chaja Chembos, Cha Sayati, you Tombanilako, Sayati, and the Eugene Delaco, and Tini Michevati, and Tini Miching, and Conde Gulia, and Kabiyana, Chembos, and Chaja Chembos, Chan Tomber Rashides, Yan Kore Chele Dros, Chembosung Juba Hos, or Tusundua, Taco Carresna, you don't want to get our Telabati, and Domani, Cabrecuni Manaya, Eugenti, Tanda, Rishi Tuni, Tanda, Ruma Denzona, Sumanashi, Rishi Tuni Mogomba, the Wachimbo Chen, the Wachimbo singing, Loti, Kandechi, Resh Sevena, that Nanje Tosungi, Treva Maluba, Never Timbe, Shindu Trave, Wesegi Sem di Chatap Chene, Tigi, Tenjiki Dava Telia, Tenjiki Deve, Tanya Jarne, Tendravati, you Tombanilea, and Never Toki, or those churches. Now I should be Lunda Jeva, Tomba Tambo. Any Chava should be Lunda Jeva, Tombe, Tomba Niva, Nyato should be Lunda Jeva, Timbe, Tomba Sumba. Or that Casa. Now she belonged to Tomba Tambo. And Chabashan belonged to Tomba Nivache, Nyatosha belonged to Java Timbe, in Tamje Tomba were Segi said, or the Tomba Shiva Shane, or Tenda Tigi, and Tomba Shiva Tamje Tomba were said, and Gawa Shiva Hengi Gawa, the Wachimbi Ishi, or Tenda Tigi, you Tomba Nivia, and the Chechitu, Nyambarsha, or Tik up the Jogong Kona Chavres, or the Tenda Yan Kove Chile Troll Sadia, or Tenda Lotindechigi, Yan Kove Chile Troll Sadia, Kuduchi Yedava. Karesana, Che Tamje, and Konde Tamje, Chigi in Sorochipa. Tuni Tale Ratu Javar, Jus Umajuana Sungarva, or Tomba Nilile, and Che Tamje, Konde Che Tamje, and Dusti Chartuaji, or Dusres. Na Lame Shun, Pashain, Shunigi, Mando Rochiba Imamase, Dawa Champion, Manaja, and Chartuaji, or Tuschene, Tabaram Jambashi, Dawa Champion, Chartu, or Tendeji, Sungudua, or T. Ne, Telatene, Chak Change, Chambo, Yan, Chak Yashi, Yadi, Yan Kove Chile, Trolls, and Yadi, you may. Semam, Sem Riba, Sem the Riba Shencheve, the Ribati, or Shindu Sem, or Tilia, and go Ranshing number Tadevachi, or Ranshing number Tadevatella, Lubu Timedibe Ringtella, and Riksak Tanyata. Nam Shigitse, Lam Gombe Togi, Lubu Timothy and Rimberimbe, Pa Tayundu, and Kenji gave a money to Pussene, Tabanin Dengi, Sangi Gulia, Rotuya Yuvachi. Tinde Hindu, she called Nagabki, Zbatia, Ranshing to met Adeva, Chi Sangen Nazo Tigiti, Telaten Chariuma, Telaten and Nuyuma, Chanum Tenech Giova, or the Jimmy Chima, Ranching Chima, Tatabe Tola, Lubu Chima Malubaji, Ta Indu, Tapanin Dengi, and Moni Yuku, or Tinechum on the Che Indu, and Chene Yeduna over Yonsus over, and Tinea, Shat Tene, and Zabanzatuaji, Yedabat, Tindu, Conde Che Tamche, and Zibokundu Samusana Mindu, New Mary Segi Samsona Mindu. Whatever six sem, I should tell the six sem, the nature of Chigi, the day in the Yannick Corvette trolls, or those chene, to loot that rising to the Vativa, and a logo to Lucia the Vache, to see Manda, the new soon to do was. Oh, that in the Chigi, some Chita you do, any so Mindo Manayas, Panchen Lobsang Choeki, so Mindo Manayas, near to Luri Lacation, Yamyo Jang in Nature, Jenna Bombachik to pubs. What charging in this and I read. You can then get dead on some juice united. Much of dead on some juice united. Meanwhile, the watching was show united. That to get some more law. Papsaki, Netty, or you change case with Doggy and Yamay, new chachigly, Ruby Deva. What to see Manda? That in the Jindu and get that Juju city. And Yavashinu Yamuchi Yozover Chimutavachin Zena, the water that Yavashinu. Oh, Eugene Tondama Seki, Tave Negi Shavet says, Kanjo Yadam Maluba, Tatu Gombachik to Bobs. You give a second tournament, come in Sunsona, and then Shabamindra. Mainga Zoche Sando, Mega Zoche Singendo, Jogum Zoche Singendo, Jagum Zoche Singendo, or Tindegi, Tanya Nasochi, Yungu Yedavachi. That you just don't know, second naked, Pado, Javati Chayumina, or Tangi Kondu Shivanashi, that Pasachilia Pabdigi Yedavachi, or the Tindeji Imanda, that Chachen saying, Gota Tawati, send Nelu, send Tia, send Gongerabe, send Maimba, and said some read some young some Vesek sem or tea better ya shut up chair and the tea gantelia and Dame Tawa Ten baby and the jogum chair or Tindichi Mada.
И где же говорится о том, что
So I said that in the practice of secret mantra, the primary approach in regards to meditation on the view here is placement meditation rather than analytical meditation. So why is this the case here? So there is a statement by Jhado Rinpoche, in his in one of his commentaries on the Goya Samaja completion stage, which is called the 5 stages in one sitting. So in that text, Jhado Rinpoche mentioned that in the practice of the completion stage, by manifesting the great bliss, the wisdom of great bliss, then one then connects that mind with emptiness, and then one places one's attention on that emptiness. So the main approach here is placement meditation. Such an approach is similar to that found in the Mahamudra. And the main source of the Mahamudra is essentially there's this particular tantra called the drop of the Mahamudra, in which there is a verse which plays. There's a verse that is kind of playing with the words Chagya Chimbu. Chak and Gya together means mudra, but literally separately, Chak is like the hand, Gya is like the seal, and Chimbu is Maha or great, isn't it? So Chak here, this hand seal, the hand here, we are talking about the objective view, or the objective view being emptiness as the object. So with regards to the objective view, that means emptiness of inherent existence as the object, There is no difference in Sutra and Tantra. Both have the same explanation with regards to the objective view. Yeah? But then when it comes to the Gya, the seal, we are talking about the subject, the mind that takes emptiness as its object. Yeah? So the mind here is not the coarse mind, but rather the extremely subtle mind of clear light. And if we use the terminology of the tradition, we say the wisdom of great bliss. Yeah. So the real wisdom of great bliss can only arise after dissolving the minds of white appearance, rate increase, and black near attainment. After which, no, then the clear light mind manifests here. So on the path here. So this clear light mind, we give it, we call it by different names, the wisdom of great bliss, or we call it the innate bliss, or what have you. The thing here is, after manifesting this extremely subtle mind of clear light on the path, and the yogi places his or her attention on the meaning of emptiness. So the main approach here is placement meditation, right, instead of analytical meditation, right? So when we are talking about manifesting the clear light mind, the coarser levels of mind has to be dissolved before the extremely subtle mind, clear light can arise. So the yogi has to dissolve the mind of white appearance together with the winds that are its mount. Then the yogi then has to dissolve the mind of rate increase together with the winds that is its mount. Then next, the yogi then has to also dissolve the mind of black near attainment together with the wind that is its mount. After these coarser levels of minds dissolve, only then can the mind of clear light manifest. Yeah. So the first three minds are called the three empties, isn't it? The empty, very empty, great empty. Then the fourth one being the all empty, clear light, or it is also called the innate joy, right? Or the wisdom of great bliss. No? So whatever name it is called, the thing here is after this clear light of the path is manifested, then the yogi places his or her attention on emptiness with that mind. So it's the primary approach again is placement meditation, isn't it, right? So there's this you might have heard of this kind of saying that all phenomena are of one pace in emptiness, isn't it? And you'll find such a similar statement in Chandrakirti's or entering the middle way, whereby all phenomena arise from emptiness, all phenomena are born from emptiness. Yeah. So yes, this is the case. But then in Higher Sukha Tantra, in addition to that, we say that all phenomena are the play of great bliss. All phenomena arise from the wisdom of great bliss. So this is said in the Higher Sukha Tantra. And when we talk about this wisdom of great bliss or the clear light, it is in mind that is naturally pure. Right? It's naturally pure. Its nature has never been stained by the defilements. Although, as a sentient being, this naturally pure clear light mind is accompanied by the adventitious defilements. And when the mind is accompanied by the adventitious defilement, it is called the Buddha lineage, the Buddha nature. Yeah? So come the time when the adventitious defilements are purified, then that very same mind, the naturally pure mind of clear light, then becomes the nature body, the body that possesses the two purities, the natural and the adventitious purity. Yeah. Okay, so while as a sentient being, all the phenomena of samsara, or rather the appearances of all samsaric phenomena arise from that mind, and at the time of death, they all subside into that mind, isn't it, right? So Then come the day when this mind of clear light is no longer accompanied by any defilements. As I said earlier on, this mind then becomes the nature, a body, yeah, isn't it? And from this nature body arises all the different enlightened activities that the Buddhas perform. Yeah? So all the enlightened activities arise from that mind. So basically, the point here is all the impure and pure phenomena all arise from the mind, in particular, the mind of clear light. Yeah? So in the practice of High Sukha Tantra, and also likewise in the practice of Tantric Mahamudra and so forth, the point is to manifest this clear light mind, and then connect it, join it with emptiness, isn't it right? So in Panchen Lobsang Choeki Gyaltsen, he composed the Mahamudra root text that is used in the Gelug tradition. And in his auto commentary, he said that for a yogi with experience, all these different traditions all come down to the same thing. They all are talking about the same thing, you know. And what he's saying is that when it comes to developing the subjective view, which is the mind of clear light, although there are different methods for manifesting this extremely subtle mind, but the point is they're all getting at the same thing, isn't it? They are all getting at trying to manifest this extremely subtle mind. Although there are differences when it comes to explaining the objective view, emptiness is the object. There's many different very different viewpoints about emptiness, whether emptiness is affirming negative or emptiness is a non-affirming negative, or whether the main way to meditate on emptiness is through analytical meditation or placement meditation. There are all these different opinions and so forth. But when we are talking about the subjective view, that means the mind that takes emptiness as its object. And in this context, we're talking about the extremely subtle mind of clear light, right? So you may have the approach of the High Sukha Tantra. You may have there's the approach of the Mahamudra. Then there's the approach in the great completion or the Dzogchen of the Nyingma tradition. They are all getting at the same thing. They're all trying to their methods to manifest this extremely subtle mind of clear light, isn't it? Right. So anyway, whatever method it may be, once the extremely subtle mind is manifest, then the yogi or yogini then places their attention on emptiness with that mind. Yeah.
В Тилаке говорится о том, что слог «гя» из слова «чагячимпо» обозначает освобождение всех явлений самсары. И мы соединяем эти два, то есть Махамудра обозначает союз или объединение этих двух аспектов пустотности, а также наитончайшего сознания, которое постигает этот объект. И таким образом мы обретаем высшую реализацию. И великий учитель, первый Panchen Lobsang Choeki Gyaltsen, в своем сочинении по Махамудре говорил о том, что хотя, может быть, по своим названиям эти учения Махамудра, Дзогчен, воззрение Мадьямаки и так далее, хотя они могут... Великий учитель, первый Panchen Lobsang Choeki Gyaltsen, в своем сочинении по Махамудре говорил о том, что хотя, может быть, по своим названиям эти учения Махамудра, Dzogchen, воззрение Мадьямаки и так далее, хотя они
제바 동배 아니 군도 슈벨론다 제바 나와라 팀제 다 군도 슈벨론다 제바 동배 동바 탐보 나웨이시 아니 나와 슈벨론다 제바 팀배 동배 아니 동바니바 체베이시 아니 체바 슈벨론다 제바 동배 아니 동바스마 녀토 아니 녀토 슈벨론다 제바 동배 탐제 동바와 세스 되게 이게 뒤지 넣어대도가 그나저 비지 소유견 유나니 되래
Oh, so she just wanted to be more clear about the four empties. So to be precise, you have to say it like this. So there are four empties. The first empty is arises when the 80 indicative conceptions, together with the winds, its mount have dissolved. Yeah, and through that, then when the mind, the wisdom of appearance arises. Yeah, so that is the first empty. Yeah? So the second empty happens when the mind of white appearance, together with the winds, which is its mount, has dissolved. Yeah, therefore giving rise to the wisdom of increase. Yeah. Okay, so that is the second empty. Then the third empty comes about through the dissolution of the wisdom of increase, together with the winds, its mount, yeah, thereby giving to rise to the wisdom of black near attainment. Yeah, and then when that wisdom of black near attainment, together with the winds, its mount is dissolved, then this will give rise to the fourth empty, which is the all empty clear light. Okay, so Rinpoche just wanted to be more precise. Yeah.
Сейчас я буду также зачитывать на русском. Ты этот Rinpoche переведешь? Ага. I will tell in Russian and Bam will help me. Значит, первый вопрос это от англоязычных слушателей. Вот Rinpoche упоминал, что есть три типа того, как явления нам являются. Это вот просто как видимость, да? Они нам являются. Второе, это как постоянные объекты. И третье, они нам являются как истинно существующие. И первая часть вопроса, их всего три способа того, как они нам являются, или их в целом больше? И вторая часть вопроса, вот второй вот этот пункт, который видимость явлений или объектов как постоянных, это тоже нам надо отбросить? То есть это тоже является объектом отрицания или нет?
텔학베 나서 현시 티스는 모티브 나서 현시 요바이 나스 나서 지직셔 rinpoche 티스는 나니 나서 니바데 nga지 진지게 나서 티 rinpoche 아니 다 가서 nga지 나서 티 말서 넘기 까고 이제 레마레스 무디리셔 로베 말라 무디리셔
로델
다 현다 나서 요 시그레데 나 람사 세부지 쉬어면도 용다티 단데티需要승부 그래. 다 강사랑 유튜브 진수제 용을 다전랑 진수제 용을 다 근데 미라 먹어도 와. 가 단데디 나지 진승의 당진들 와. 디가 과지로 와. 기지네 규회라시 미다바 참지 검제 디 또가 줄을 맞잖아. 나지 진승의 까토고 메도가. 다 단데체네. 고가고 해지래. 다 단데디 아니 마 타니에 답에 따던 자위스는 니기 여봐. 아니 짐베 어때 단데지 유등이 여봤다고 좀 진수지도 와. 어디 단데까지 남수들래. 자니 시기에 임한다. 어디래. 랜딩스만.
So with regards to the question, so we should talk about the three ways in which the eye or any object can arise. So basically, so are there other modes of apprehension, besides those three. So Rinpoche said, definitely, I mean, possible, but he can't really think of anything for sure for now. But possibilities are, for example, the apprehension of the self as being self-sufficient, substantially existent, or you can apprehend the grasp at the self as being permanent, unitary, and independent. Yeah. Okay. So then with regards to the second mode of apprehension, which Rinpoche talked about during the teachings, literally the apprehension is called apprehending the eye of the former and later moments as one. So essentially, basically that is grasping at permanence, thinking that the eye has the current eye is the same as the eye of the previous moment. There's this grasping at permanence that basically the eye hasn't changed. We have this kind of concept, isn't it? So, and this is a wrong concept, and this has to be negated, isn't it? Right? And the way to negate this concept is to realize subtle impermanence, in which one understands how all compounded phenomena change momentarily, isn't it? Then, with regards to the way, with regards to the object of negation, what we're trying to negate here in this discussion on emptiness is the third mode of apprehension. We have this, we apprehend the I, the self, or phenomena to be inherently existent. We believe, that there's something right there. If we were to ask to point to something that is the object, we are kind of sure that I know that the object is the thing that we're talking about. So that is the object of negation, that we are trying to negate.
Михаил, не могли бы вы произнести этот вопрос на русском?
Да, вот Ринпоче говорил о 3 способах проявления явлений.
Нет, следующий вопрос.
Является ли второй способ, то есть познание объектов как постоянных, объектом отрицания или отбрасывания?
Второй вопрос.
Следующий.
Would help us to continue German question.
Гишла, you mean second question. Все, я понял. Второй вопрос по-русски. Есть ли какие-либо методы, которые могут помочь нам постоянно или непрерывно практиковать союз бодхичитты и мудрости в нашей повседневной жизни? It's a second question.
지 개조 칸 룽아 개와 칸체 드수 상마 랑데 이제기 지 라니 지부 치트사야기 대담 만데버지 고야 든데지 단다라 아니 잡아다 닝지 저기 장주스 잡대 든데지기 로직 장제 아니 텔라테네 지 개와 칸체부터 신경 코나리야 니 규야지기 냠레지 메타메바 어디 인도 통마를 냠내 칸데지기 개조 칸데지 있나야 지 마주스 심제 탐제사야기 다 든데지기 지 탑기 냠내기 자와지 몬도다 라테네 무시 하공기 연나를 나던기 연나를 강다강기 더기 이니 단데디 장원로 정거 지물람르나 수만나시 차다 꼬바다 가르쳐봐 qabli 있나야 아니 따웨 이니 게단 따웨스 버천 그냥 유딩네 랑문에 매다버지기 아니 민거왕기 샤섬 타니기 왕기 샤섬 체제 람상 따웨 돌이야 제바 양양 체제 딘데지 충분히나 아니 답신이게 내 개와 강제들 답신이게 내 차지 용야당 대양 아니 주구 투모모이베 유다 수구 투모모이베 유리야 딱딱 놓투야지 마세버지기 개와 강다 강제버 대양 아니 지 공주다 로다다 드즈기 좀부터야지 따에 게다바이나 아니 공주 좀부터야지 순구도와 대만이나 아니 개와 간체버디 야 공주 개와 동도 사베 게자 좀야 개와 잘 사베 게자 좀야 딘데 순구도와 딘데 인도 지 개조르기 냠렌티 탑 찬주 있음기 시대에 시작네 아니 지 대단님도 따왔다 잘제 두스체네 줘야지 따에 게다 두스 있어래 다 되지면도 고소미면 따에 게다야 뭐 되지래
Okay, I have no idea what the question is because I didn't hear the question, but the answer is this. So, whatever practice we do, whether we're accumulating merit or purifying our minds of negativities and obscurations and so forth, it is important that we do not engage in these practices with a self-cherishing attitude. We should not just be thinking of our own purpose, our own happiness. Yeah. So it is important to train in the Bodhicitta motivation, which is rooted in love and great compassion. Yeah. Okay. So if we have the Bodhicitta motivation, then we will be able to transform everything that we do into something that is beneficial for sentient beings. We will be able to transform all those actions into actions that will fulfill the purposes or the goals of other sentient beings. Yeah. So at the beginning of whatever practice you might be doing, so it's important to set the Bodhicitta motivation. All right. Okay. So it doesn't, and then during the actual practice, be it whether you're doing a deity yoga or like what Jhado Rinpoche mentioned in the Lumbrim, when you're going about making offerings or circumambulations and so on and so forth. So when you're engaging in those practices, seal those practices with the view of emptiness. Bring to mind how everything do not exist from your own side. Everything that exists, everything that appears, exists and merely imputed by thought. Yeah? So if you're able to do our practices in such a way with Bodhicitta motivation and then sealing those practices, conjoining those practices with the view of emptiness, then our practice would have have both the aspect of method and wisdom present, and in such a way, then those practices then will become a course for us to achieve the two bodies of the Buddha. And it is also said that if the practices that are done conjoined with the view of emptiness, and the merit or the virtue that arises from those practices can never be destroyed by anger.
Если мы совершаем практику таким образом и затем совершаем посвящение заслуг, то такие заслуги, обретенные посредством этой практики, не будут уничтожены, например, гневом или ложными воззрениями, как это могло бы произойти. Потому что в текстах говорится о том, что если мы не совершили посвящение этих заслуг, не оберегаем эти заслуги, то одним моментом гнева могут быть уничтожены заслуги, которые были накоплены нами в течение тысяч или кальп.
So the verse that we quoted about the about doing prostrations and circumambulations while being mindful of the view. So if you have the book called The Final Exposition of Wisdom, translated by Jeffrey Hopkins, is on page 84 of the book version, not the soft copy version, the book version. Okay, page 84.
С точки зрения невосприятия трех сфер. И здесь, когда мы говорим невосприятие трех сфер, мы подразумеваем отсутствие истинного существования того, кто совершает действие, объекта этого действия и самого действия.
Whereas the other quotation that we should talk about, this I translated it as a shimmering appearance, gaining a view of emptiness is not as difficult as.
Let finish.
That's page 82. Anyway, yeah.
Kishla in Russian first.
Maybe. Wait.
Okay.
Yeah, first I will tell maybe from yesterday question we forgot, I think. From yesterday English question, Misha from Ricky, that like this someone. Rinpoche dirisha kesa ki thiwajina la tanda kesa Rinpoche ke sabshi tete yose dumache se di sabwa shiwa di sama dame baham tongba ni ki ta namchang re so bar Rinpoche sabwa Woti indigo treba se treba the tawati and tenda chi treba di kharija di chik share Rinpoche teta dewa chi thiwaji teta dewa ki a shola thiwa shindaji nyamdo chu shaban re dewa du kuni thiwa shindaji di du ani nyamdo la 아니 German 티바지도 대념도 대화 딩이 대화이니시 아니 남주 가서 랑딩도 나기도 랑딩도 나이고 동반이 삼로 땅에 칸라 아니 수수기 가서 공회기 시에발라서 처와디게디 라종이라시도스 라 매버신 지금도 안디 처와디 매버도 까도로 쳐디고 나들 라도 쳐디고라 마대와 숙청부도 시다지 여러 뭐지 어디게 지금 마대와 선한 어디리 숙청부시 리기도 인자 텔라 강에 들이스토도 안 디프레션 셈 이슈므도 라인들 리기도 인자 텔라 지기다 강에 도널리스다지 간디에노 세다 인죠 이거죠 뭐나
단다 트레더세 텔라야
Rinpoche Gondа, Misha, you understand the question from yesterday?
Я понял, да. То есть, если в двух словах вопрос был такой, что когда у меня все более углубляется понимание пустоты, то я начинаю терять свою уникальность, свою индивидуальность на относительном уровне. И это постепенно приводит меня к депрессии, разочарованным чувствам и так далее. Возможно, я что-то упускаю, или, возможно, есть какие-то практики, которые мне надо выполнять, чтобы этого не было.
Это один. Второе, это еще связь, connection. Please give me a detailed explanation to beyond extreme, which is context of emptiness, как вчера вы сказали, да?
Ну, в виде side to skip, but yes. А второй вопрос — это когда... Что означает выйти за пределы
I don't know what's happening, but anyway, there are two questions. One about the meaning of free from complexity, from the quotation that we cited yesterday.
트레더세 텔라 코란 랑시메바 ene tongba nyingebe tan tongba nyingi mi namra sungu yebe ida tongba nyil jan chebe ina ene ku dokcho dinjing gi traba chi ngurwa o teta trawa treta dinjing gi traba en dinru gi traba ta tene dondam jabe lo chi himbe chane kunzo gi traba ta tene 코란 yu tongwa nyila zai jikdu shubha lo chi yinpe chane yu yu jen tate ki zheba da tene dan donga tumu do tang tere da tene nga ya jane nga tumbo la ya ja yindu tene nangje to sungi zheba duzo sungu duwa zheba tala sa zheba tala nangje to sungi zheba da tazu ji yang yu jen ke shuni xe yindu tende sini zheba tala sa tala orima tende yu yin sa re 디디 저 당을 내인 버체 다테네 단다 따베 잡아 제베 걸이야 말라 아드베 소르지 나 맨드베 소르지 들이야 당나지 용대지 딱코 가리 맞은 거래 제베 있나 에네 단다디 강하 깨라 라레바 대대랑시 기동시 숭바 딜레 야천베 리돈촌의 지시치 있으네 장골로만 정보 친구 숭바나시 깨라 라레바 인자 라문드 주베 동바레 제베 마토치 코 민두 제베 깨자 말해 시초제 민두 제베 깨자 말해 시초제 까고 말해 오 시초제 라문드 주베 까버래 시초제 깨라 되베 인자 라문드 주베 까버래 오 딘데기 디체네 에네 지 민기 타년이 왕기 나승이 지샤기 옆에 거기 되기다 주든 정보들 깨져 시작하나시 디고들 섬야야 숙체스지 단지 민기 타년이 왕기 에네 난조투기 옆에 꼴이야 강한 감성 거지 차인도 디기 에네 슈텔라 에네 민기 타년이 왕기 뜨네 샤 딘데지기 토네 에네 랑원의 주베 다 매버지래도 와세인데 랑원의 주베 동바티기 매로 마임바 람사 타니 용기 샤 상조 투위여바 어 디톨이야 엔 로리야 게 통바이나 게 투바 중바이나 디 난다티 용기 사마레 상도 때네 중에 규생기 타다와라 메테시스 릭송 디는 거기 마왈라는 메비 때네 중에 유찬라 때네 엔 랑원의 주베 동바르와 스네 디기 ane 시초제야 매듭에 차다디에 봤세 ane 유딩네 강라 때문에 여보 거에서 딘자 따지기 타니기 탔다와라 미네시스 렉송 되는 거기 마와라는 메리교슨 어디 도스체네 상대서 땅이나 팽맨도 섬섬지 도스 단단 말하지 나타도 전에 아니야 민도 와서 대치고 지고 sometimes 라치 버와스 나메도 삼바들 와스 어디마임바 아니 다른 나란 측이 주든 담보가로 못 담보 주드네 최는 또왜 왕비 족주 시에나 사기 또왜 왕비 간지 시작이 요매 민기 타니 왕비 간지 시작이 뒤거들이야 신주 조체네 도스체네 다 근데 샤투 아니 랑은 매나야 여초도와 선바지기 아니 근데 체네 타니라 차와 타니베 체네 미네바 델라 ton단자베 르 미네바 어떤데 지금 터네 아니 여봐 저투도와 세지 어두스나 아니 잡아도 용금에 다성도 단들 십자 지금 말 베트바 드라이나 디르와 제 안나에 여탔어요 동배 메탔어요 어디니니 그거티 세버지 야구 충분히나 단다 탑다발 메데시 세데 되는 라리 야구 추구로 도체나
И отвечая на первый вопрос,
So the first question was on the meaning of the quote which we cited yesterday from the Lalita Vistara Sutra, profound and peaceful, free from complexity and so forth. So what is the meaning of free from complexity or free from elaborations, right? So as I mentioned yesterday, free from elaborations is another way of saying emptiness. So from that point of view, free from elaborations means emptiness of inherent existence. So which means when we talk about elaborations is the opposite of emptiness, isn't it? Right? Isn't it? Which means in inherent existence or true establishment or true existence, isn't it? Right? If that is elaboration, free from elaboration means to be free from that, which means the emptiness of inherent existence, emptiness of true existence, isn't it? Then if we want to talk about elaboration from another perspective, from the perspective of
построения, связанные с относительной истиной, с относительным
from the perspective of the mind that is immersed in direct perception of emptiness, right? So from the perspective, the mind directly realizing emptiness is free from all the elaborations of duality, the duality of subject and object, because in the direct perception of emptiness, it's like water mixed with water, isn't it? Right? So there's no sense of duality, right? Then, from the perspective of what the mind, meditative people is realizing emptiness is realizing, what it is realizing here is emptiness, and only emptiness, right? So that mind is free from the elaborations of all conventionalities. So in the perspective of the mind directly realizing emptiness, all conventionalities do not exist, do not appear, right? So in that sense, there's another meaning of free from elaboration. Right? So then, as for the second question, is about this fear of losing the self or the I when one is meditating on emptiness. Right? So she said there is something missing when your meditation leads to this fear of losing the I or the self. What is missing? So what is missing is lack of understanding of how things exist in mere name, as I explained earlier on in the first session, right? So Jhado Rinpoche emphasized in his illumination of the intent that one must first pay attention, concentrate on how and get an idea of how things exist in by name and how things exist as merely imputed by thought, isn't it? So there's no need to fear, because what we are negating here is not the basis of the emptiness. What we are negating here is the elaborations of inherent existence, with regards to the object in question, right? So we are not negating the I. We are negating this this conception of the I as being inherently existent, isn't it? Right? Okay. So I think the main thing is, first you need to put more attention in understanding how things exist through the power of conceptuality, how things exist being merely labeled, imputed by thought, which Jhado Rinpoche emphasized, isn't it? Right? So once you have this idea, a strong, good idea that things do exist through the power of conceptuality, right? Then even when you come to the time when you are thinking about the emptiness of the I and so forth, you probably feel that the I may not exist inherently, but the I can exist, still exist, because you have already sorted this out earlier on, isn't it? You have established for yourself how things exist through the power of conceptuality, isn't it? So yeah, and also the Rinpoche briefly talk about the how things how is conventional existence posited as fourth anyway.
창말로비 두글 첨보시에네 달렌디 유다나마 시디 두르나마 콜레케마텔레 믹세 투체 슈이 아니 대시 쳐서 게실라게 디톨 코디나마텔레 믹세 투체 슈이 게실라다
This extended is the appreciation for all the interpreters and for the organizer,
슈토마텔레 믹세 투체 슈이 아니
for everyone,
솔라이네야
to all of you who have been listening.
야마노바야 이게시그레 강달 도나 첨부지나 이제 너베 차디 봐 슝첨보다 돌제 돌렌체바 계제신이 디레 슝첨보 돌도롱아 말에 어 두스체 텔리아 도나나 모텔리아 투지체스 샤이 뭐뭐 나로나.
И я хотел бы выразить свою
That's when we are basically sending its appreciation to all the interpreters and to the organizer Gyaltsen from the Four Truths Center in Moscow, and also would like to extend his appreciation to all of you who have been listening intensely with much interest. So it is possible that in the course of my teaching, there could be things that I've made mistakes. There could also be things that I've said correctly. But whatever the case, if you discover that there are mistakes, I've said things that are not perhaps not so correct, then those you should discard. So basically, you should accord things. Everything must accord with the great treatises. Okay.
Исправить эти ошибки. И великие тексты, великие буддийские трактаты, великих учителей — это то, от чего ни в коем случае нельзя отказываться. И поэтому я хотел бы выразить всем тем, кто принимал участие в этих учениях, свою искреннюю благодарность. И теперь давайте совместно совершим посвящение заслуг.
I think it's time for dedication, I think. Yeah.
Los Gewadi Nyutu da Lama Drowa Chigyama Luba Te Sala Gobar Shu Chanjo Simjo Rinpoche Maje Panam Kiju Chigewa Nyamba Meba Ya Kone Kondo Pewa Shu Toni Tawa Rinpoche Maje Panam Kiju Chigewa Nyamba Meba Kone Kondo Pewa Shu Kari Rawe Koyi Shingamsu Penda Dewa Malu Jungwe Ne Cheresewa Dinzi Gyazu Shape Sidi Pado Tenju
맞습니다.
내가 특징이 주셔 전부지 까마지기나 라고 아니 다른데 먼저 대시 최소원에 rumbushila 가서 닝우 루베드네 rumbushila 오늘 가서 달래 차지소되기 칙 쇼로가 디토네 수준으로서 슈바 시송게 rumbushi 오늘 다네들라 최동안에 니만이를 뒤수 당하지 가져라 숭지 오늘 텐데 사부 세부 오늘 전에 동안이가 오늘 전에 클로 지금 대조라 고도다 아니 고도 강패배 디 고도패와 디톤에 사무당달랑 명부시령이 땐데 편도 전부 땐데 용걸 삼에디 샘디나 소송원에 있는 제 가서 디톤에 rumbu시 닝구 두비데 거진 치에슈 직슈숑 rumbu시 닝구 두베 아니 관조 공부를 투치에슈에 오늘 디도로 공가 접조시다 나서
Visualize extending his heartfelt appreciation and thanks to Rinpoche and to his attendant. And now it's extending appreciation to all the interpreters.
Sunnyland antinasi 코나기 차로 assistant 계규를 소소 assistant 간주를 이게다 안디난데다 간주 디토라 조 로바칭이 된다고 미샤 비디오스키 오늘 닝제
And it's also the Russian assistant in town. And now I think thank you to all of you for listening.
지금 최적의 상로 매버도 보시니까 최초랑 삼단 진행이 rumbushi 소화다 봐 고디치와 인터넷 소화다 배다 고디치요데 아니 가르스나 당한주 가르스나
So Geshe said he organized this teaching with without any worldly concerns.
rangi samlo tani une ngazu nangpa mangbuchi la rumbuchi la chi nangbe jinju ba tyenye wa nam
the benefit teachings
rumbuchi la chende ngus thobe yige
bring to
rumbuchi la
listeners.
shege donga ani khalota khodo sebu ya buchi 강 패배에 저 딘디게다
His hope was just to help the listeners gain a good and clear understanding of the topic.
소소라니 rumbuchi 로마 신비 찬이 rumbuchi 깨라 전부 소여다고 다 아주 최소 개변에 섬들이 자원이 섬들이 큐니 짱매 섬로
Because is saying that he didn't organize the teaching to kind of elevate Rinpoche's position in the eyes of public, or was it for some profit for his Dharma center?
숭지 트다데라고 되는 rumbuchi 달랭한주 숭지디 달랭 유튜브 리코디 한주 다다 유디나 샤샤기 아니 가자 내가 되나 샤기 안디니 둔다니 숨시 투스 it takes time 먼저 디라 칼로타 직 파수 데스 지도부터 세우고 되는 nice way to make nice 무디 아니
the raw recording of the teaching will be on YouTube, but the final edited version will only be up a couple of weeks time. So because the teachings are profound and deep, so there's no way for us to understand everything right away. So as such, the recordings are there for us to utilize.
빠라발라 근데 나오죠. 다른 고급 디준 신도 중 마음발에 수치다 되자고 되는데 먼저 rumbuchi 다 천대 토백에 다 로마 망부실 땡땡 거라 단도 요약이 된지가 아니 rumbuchi 공부하셔나 시 공자나로나 쉬지 공티. 응아다 뒤에 망부사기면 나오 죽이면 어디 투첸 가든지.
В свою очередь, я также от лица
So to the English channel listeners, if you are really interested in the quotes that Rinpoche cited from the middle length Lamrim, so you can find it in this particular version of the book. Yeah, Tsongkhapa's Final Exposition of Wisdom. Okay, so this is a translation of the special insight section from the middle length Lamrim, and so there are two particular quotes, two particular sections that Rinpoche was reading from. One is on page 79 of this particular book. Yeah, page 79. Page 79, going all the way to the second paragraph of page 80. So then the other quote on how we can do our daily practice with the view, that can be found on page 84 of the book. Page 84, the third paragraph.
Тибетский язык Геше Келсang Ваму. Также я хотел бы выразить свой
Since there's time, I can read this out. Yeah. The dawning thereupon of shimmering ephemeral appearances arises in dependence on not differentiating inherent existence from mere existence and the absence of inherent existence from non-existence. Hence, such an emptiness is an emptiness destroying dependent arising. Therefore, even the dawning of shimmering ephemeral appearances induced by realizing those is not at all the meaning of being like an illusion. Therefore, it is not difficult when analyzing with reasoning to think persons and so forth do not in the least have an objective mode of abiding, which is they are being established by the way of their own nature. And in dependence on this, for these appearances to shine forth ephemerally, such happens to all who are interested in the middle way tenets that have heard a few scattered doctrines teaching the mode of the absence of inherent existence. However, the difficult point is that you must from the depths be able to induce ascertainment with respect to the negation without residue of an inherent nature, establishment by the way of the object's own nature, and be able to posit those very persons and so forth lacking inherent existence as the accumulators of actions, experiences of effects, and so forth. A composite of these two hardly occurs, and hence the middle way view is very difficult to find. Just for the sake of a record. And then the other one, I think I have time, right? Consequently, even when engaging in the class of behavioral practices such as prostration, circumambulation, and so forth, you should do them within being affected by the force of analytical ascertainment as explained above, and thereby train in illusory-like appearance. This should be done within this. They should be done within this, though Through having become proficient in this, even by merely becoming mindful of the view, those will dawn as like illusions.
И не для того, чтобы прославить самого Jhado Rinpoche или обрести какую-то выгоду для нашего центра. Мы занимались организацией этих учений для того, чтобы принести благо как можно большему количеству людей. И я хотел бы сказать, что в этих учениях принимали участие довольно много людей, слушало около 400 человек, и я говорю сейчас только о Zoom. Также эти учения транслировались по YouTube, а также на Facebook. Я уверен, что эти учения услышало довольно большое количество людей. И также я бы хотел сказать, чтобы в будущем все те, кто слушал эти учения, снова и снова слушали эти учения, например, на записи в YouTube. Через несколько дней, я не знаю, может быть, через неделю, мы постараемся отредактировать эти учения и затем представить их на обозрение публики, так чтобы те, кто пожелает, могли снова и снова слушать эти учения, потому что эти учения несут в себе очень глубокий смысл, поэтому я обращаюсь ко всем тем, кто принимал участие в этих учениях, с просьбой, чтобы вы как можно чаще слушали, то есть снова и снова слушали эти учения, несущие в себе глубокий смысл. И я также хотел бы сказать о том, что я надеюсь, что и в будущем досточтимый Jhado Rinpoche не оставит нас и снова будет давать свои глубокие наставления, свои глубокие учения. И я искренне надеюсь на это, и я надеюсь, что Jhado Rinpoche продолжит давать свои наставления для учеников.
Thank you to also those administration website for Safe Tibet and Calming Hurul and Tua Buret and also different Facebook. Thanks to everyone who support for this, for announcement. Thank you very much to all of you.
Спасибо.
Спасибо.
Большое спасибо, Ринпоче. И у меня минуточка, маленькое объявление. I also will tell in English and in Russian first. Да, во-первых, Гешала поблагодарил всех организаторов из Дацана, из Safe Tibet, и со всех Схурулов, с калмыцких, с провинций, то есть всех, кто помогал нам в распространении объявлений, в поддержке, вообще в помощи. И большое спасибо всем переводчикам и ассистентам, соответственно, всем, кто помогали. И у меня пара объявлений на русском сначала. Записи в том виде не отредактированном, они, как есть сейчас, уже будут на Ютубе, но мы их планируем в ближайшие, может быть, пару недель немножко улучшить и перезагрузить. То есть, может, старую удалим, новую загрузим. Также те, кто спрашивают про подношения, информация у нас есть на сайте, то есть можно зайти на сайт, в раздел подношения, и там есть информация о том, как их сделать. И также у нас сейчас проводится учение у Геше Дукже, и завтра у нас как раз-таки будет вечером занятие, у нас будет лекция, тоже посвященная этим же строфам, комментарии на которые давал Jhado Rinpoche, и Гешала даст также краткие пояснения по ним и, возможно, ответит на вопросы, которые остались без ответа. То есть это вкратце. Теперь for other languages. Thanks to translators and for assistance. Your help was very nice. And we are very glad to work with you together. And about recordings on YouTube channel, we will have in Russian, English, and later we will upload into German also. At least we have some such plans. About Chinese, I don't know, but maybe. But about Russian, German, and English, we will download it or upload on our YouTube channel. You can find it on our site if you wish.
Chinese recorded, they can contact to their assistants or translators.
And about Chinese recordings, you can contact Sunny Lin. And in case if you want to make donations, you can contact to your, for example, assistants or translators, or you can write to our email. I will put it in the chat, and if you wish, we can answer you in case.
Or they can contact direct to Gompola.
Да, or direct to Gompola, who is assistant of Jhado Rinpoche. И, конечно же, большое спасибо Геше Дукже, и спасибо большое всем, кто помогал в организации этих лекций. Большое спасибо также российским помощникам. And Again, thanks a lot to all translators and assistants. И большое спасибо всем участникам, потому что вы тоже очень важны. And thanks a lot to all participants. We are very appreciate you that you spent your time for these teachings. Да, и большое спасибо, что вы уделили свое время этим учениям.
Yeah, thanks to all. Ishoras, again, I want to say thanks to all Lotsawa translators in different language. Thank you very much. And all assistants and all artists, all participants. Thank you, participants.
And, да, и Гешлаут сказал большое спасибо всем переводчикам и помощникам за организацию. И я думаю, на этом наше учение закончено. Если у вас появятся какие-либо вопросы, вы можете писать нам на почту, мы постараемся отвечать оперативно. Касательно записи мы уже сказали, все будет в Ютубе. Поэтому, если, в общем, остались вопросы, пишите на почту. And our teachings are finished now. If you have any questions, you can write to our email. If you wish, I put it in the chat.
Yeah.
Also, I will give my email to all translators and assistants in case if you need.
And we will request to Rinpoche again to give teaching in the future. Yeah, we have
Да, и
planned.
в будущем, да, мы снова попросим Ринпоче.
Everybody wanted Mahamudra или Dzogchen.
Да, то есть все хотят получить учение по Махамудре и по Дзогчену, и поэтому в будущем у нас снова есть план попросить у Ринпоче учения. Ну, не знаю, может быть, уже по более высоким, а куда выше. Так что нормально. Да. И в любом случае, если мы вновь попросим, то информация вновь будет на сайте у нас, мы везде тоже разместим, попросим, поэтому на этом учение закончено, и мы надеемся, что увидимся в будущем. Teachings are finished now, and we hope to see you in future again for Jhado Rinpoche teachings. Thanks a lot to everyone,
Thank
and see you.
you. Thank you.
Да, большое спасибо, Б.
Спасибо, everybody.
That's all.
Yes, sir.
I will close conference in few minutes.
Güzel güzel kardeşim ama çünkü bu zaten
Thanks a lot to everyone. See you.